Time travel is an entertaining and mysterious thing. Sometimes we accidentally find ourselves in another time dimension. Sometimes we get caught up in our dreams. We don't even realize where our feet are leading us. A tall, skinny, and rather cute guy was glued to his phone screen. He forgot about the traffic rules for pedestrians and did not notice the huge trucks. A phyllinologist is a person who researches the anatomy, physiology, genetics, and breeding of cats. Our main character was probably such a person. One thing is for sure. He liked cats of different breeds very much. A young fiction writer imagined that cats might be bigger than mammoths. Big, cute, fluffy, warm, and incredibly affectionate. The dreamer longed to see unrealistically large cats. However, common sense told him that this was not possible. The gracefulness, uniqueness, beauty of cats dazzled the dreamer. He involuntarily closed his eyes and immersed himself even more into his colorful and unique inner world. Indeed, all you have to do is close your eyes, and you are in another time dimension. Life in the parallel world is completely different from life on Earth. Here, cats can be like flying, majestic dragons. They are fearless and eerily beautiful. Indeed, the unreal is stronger than reality. It is hard to escape from the captivity of violent fantasies. The powerful fangs of a predator are frightening and mesmerizing at the same time. The sharp teeth can instantly, obsessively sink into tasty flesh. Surprisingly, in another time dimension, cats can have sharp horns on their bodies. Their anger is like an all-consuming flame. The dreamer was frightened by his own fantasies. Suddenly, he found himself under the giant paw of a cat. The climax! The deadly claws are about to pierce the living tiny flesh. But why is there still no system alert as there usually is in the manga? And here comes the long-awaited moment. Is there really a chance to save a life? The system for spiritual, mental, and physical self-development worked. My eyes sparkled with joy and surprise. The restless dreamer triumphed. He's a badass. He'll have his own system. The system had just discovered its master and was completely dormant. However, the threat loomed over his head like the sword of Damocles. From love to hate is one step. Sometimes what we love can ruin our lives. The system was loading rapidly, and it had some kind of strange binding. I'm just about to finish the load, but I'm running out of energy and my nerves are on edge. Come on, we're just a little bit away from the finish line. 1% more. Success seems to be just around the corner. The nightmare will soon be over. But sometimes fate likes to play jokes and tickle your nerves. And things don't go according to plan. The bewildered boy could not believe his eyes. Something out of the ordinary had happened. The system suddenly died and gave its soul to the virtual god. Tears of despair and anger flooded the poor guy's face. But even in the most difficult moments, you should not lose heart. There is a way out of the most difficult labyrinth. And you can always escape from the ogre monster Minotaur. The eyes of the astonished boy are full of hope. But what was the threat? Why did the system's defenses activate? The behavior of a strange huge cat is unpredictable. Will it swallow our main character like a mouse? I think the guy's staring death in the face. He's completely exhausted. What a surprise. Is it a girl or a vision? No, it's a real ancient Egyptian goddess with a cat's head. Sometimes we don't believe in something and we don't understand something. But there are things that exist beyond our understanding, beyond our consciousness. And one day we come face to face with them. A beautiful stranger, light and translucent. Or maybe it's an optical illusion, an unbridled flight of fancy. The ancient Egyptian goddess descended gracefully toward the guy. She was peaceful and dazzlingly beautiful. This was the kind of unusual, admirable physique the guy definitely hadn't seen in his world. And the cat girl herself seemed to be surprised. To satisfy the tactile hunger, you just have to get another batch of touch. Is an ethereal being so hungry? It seems that the cat girl had never seen an Earth guy before. That's why she studied our protagonist's face carefully, thoroughly. Everything that happens to us happens exactly when we need it to. The binding has been successfully completed, but between whom or what was the binding made? Fate must have bound the lonely hearts together forever. It was the beginning of a close intertwining of two life paths. And this is the fun and mysterious world of Yu Ming. Earthlings can't find it on their maps, because this world is in a completely different timeline. Here's a cozy house which is drowned in the rays of daylight. Who lives in it? Where is the body of our protagonist? Only his spirit now hovers in the other world, and whose motionless body is in the corner of the room. But the guy doesn't seem at all bothered by the fact that he's incorporeal. He is only concerned with one question. Where has the beautiful girl gone? Suddenly the guy decided to forget about the beautiful goddess. First of all, he wanted to understand what to do in the new world, where to go, or fly to next. The spirit saw someone's breathless body in the room. He thought it was a very attractive body, beautiful as he had in his time-space. The soulless body was quite handsome, strong and hardy, so perhaps the spirit wanted to become the master of this magnificent body. Suddenly, a meow was heard. Someone shouted happily that Ben Meow was free. The troubled spirit hovered motionless over the lifeless body. Who had frightened it so? A crazy cat with green and blue eyes was doing some kind of ritual dance, and she was talking like a human. The wacky prankster lamented that her strength had run out. But what strength could this small, cute animal have? The guy had never met a talking cat in his timeline, so he was very surprised. The cat acted like a fearsome queen, and she called someone a slave soul. Who was she talking to? The astonished boy was perplexed. Had the little cat really called him a slave soul? He could not believe that cats could talk. But the arrogant animal wouldn't shut up. The cat ordered the boy to look her in the eye and told him he was her slave. It's been a long time since a guy laughed like that. He was really amused by the snooty, cute cat. But what kind of talking animal is that? The cat continued to play the role of a majestic queen. She told the boy to come to her immediately. The astonished young man still couldn't understand if he was talking to an animal, or maybe it was an auditory hallucination. The delighted boy gladly obeyed the order of the formidable queen. After all, he has adored cats since he was in diapers. The boy's approach at first slightly embarrassed the formidable queen, and she was speechless for a few seconds. The cat proudly announced that her name is Jo Ke, and unofficially, Ben Da Miao. She is the wisest demon in the world. The cat also added that the guy must obey her unconditionally. The crazy naughty girl said that now the guy will always live with her, and he must serve her. Jo Ke for meat and the slave for soup. Suddenly the guy couldn't help himself and stroked the cat. He also said his name was Meng Changji. The satisfied guy confessed that he had a little secret. Jo Ke was eager to know what that secret was. After all, she thought she was supposed to know all the character traits of her slave. That naughty hand is a real cat magnet. There's no hiding or hiding from it. The humbled young man gladly revealed his innermost secret. He confessed that he adores cats of all kinds. Jo Ke pondered for a moment. She didn't know how to react to her slave's confession yet. This is the fright in the eyes of a victim who has fallen into the hands of a real maniac. Where can the proud demon hide from the love of his slave? The formidable demon rebelled and tried to break free from his slave's arms. Jo Ke shouted fearfully that she doesn't need love. She hates the feeling. Ben Da Miao yelled and ordered the vile cat lover to get his hands off her. But the guy didn't hear anything. After all, he had a very cute cat in his hands. It wasn't an earthquake. A small house shook from boundless and strong love. The dazed demon screamed for his freedom, but no claws would frighten a true cat lover. Meng Changji thought that the wise demon was quite cute, and he wasn't even going to let it out of his hands. And the soft pads of the fearsome demon's paws. I should tickle them. The guy was incredibly happy to have his own tame cat in another world. He decided to name her Jojo. The fierce demon clearly didn't like the new name, and he said that his powerful forces would soon return to him and he would definitely take revenge on his offender. The system has finally started working. This means that Meng Changji has a chance to refine his strength and live fully in the new world. Two soulmates met. Perhaps it was this meeting that triggered the system, but it didn't take long for the guy and the cat to be alone in the room with the stranger's breathless body. Looks like they have company. Some angry man was unceremoniously dragging a frail girl into the room. Who are these people? Where did they come from? The bandit pushed the girl. He ordered her to immediately rescue some guy. The poor thing must have taken a lot of abuse, but she remained unperturbed. Jojo said that Meng Changji had missed the opportunity to gain an attractive, healthy body, but the guy didn't seem to be too upset. After all, he now had a new friend in a foreign world. The strange girl's name was Dr. Lee. The man ordered her to resurrect the boy by any means necessary. Otherwise, she would lose her own life. The girl replied that she was a doctor, and her job is to heal everyone, no matter who it is. Dr. Lee began to examine the patient. She said that the boy was barely breathing and his pulse was very weak. While still alive, the soul left this body. How can a person be resurrected now? The doctor said we have to get the soul back immediately. Otherwise, the body might die. But she admitted that she had never done soul return. The vicious criminal didn't want to hear any excuses. He repeated once again that the girl would lose her life if she didn't save the boy. Can this pill really bring a body without a soul back to life? I find that hard to believe. But there was no other way out. The soul had to be urgently returned to the body. Dr. Lee was like a caring mother who gives candy to a child. She loved her profession too much. Meng Changji didn't believe that the soul would return. After all, the patient himself would not be able to swallow the pill. The boy was greatly surprised by the doctor's methods of treatment. He had no idea that patients could be treated in such a way. Something strange has happened. There's fear in the cat's eyes. Where's Meng Changji going, and why is the cat with him? Did the guy really go on a temporary trip again? Is this a dream? Whose silhouette is that? What a beautiful girl. Kid, wake up. You can't stay in a lethargic sleep for that long. You're still young. I think the guy's showing the first signs of life. He was able to open his eyes. The amazed boy saw his beautiful, handsome savior. The resurrection must have been a success. But where are Meng Changji and his cute cat? The girl exhaled a sigh of relief when she saw that the boy had come to his senses, and the pill had really helped. Meng Changji was very surprised when he saw a cat flying in the air. Benda Meow flew right next to the girl's head and waved her paws in her direction. The guy leaned closer to the girl and the cat and started to call Jojo. But when he saw the girl's surprised look, he stopped. That one tilted her head slightly, watched carefully, and interrogated the guy about Joe. The guy first wanted to explain what Joe was, but then he abruptly changed his mind, and brushed off that he hadn't come to his senses yet. Benda Meow kept resenting why this girl couldn't see her. The guy asked the cat to stop doing that. Meng Changji extended his hand to the girl, and began to ask how he could thank her, but the girl immediately moved away from him. The guy didn't have time to touch her, and the doctor got up and started yelling to the man that she had already saved him, and asked if she could leave. But the man who brought her in was already closing the door. He said the boss had ordered her to keep her by his side in case he died again. The girl's eyes filled with horror at the realization of the situation. The door closed with a loud slam. Although the girl rushed to the exit, it was already closed. The girl pounded on the door as hard as she could and screamed that they had lied to her. Their contract didn't sound right. But from behind the doors there was only laughter and mockery. Everyone in the room was annoyed at what had happened, each for his own reason. Benda Meow was very angry because she didn't have a physical body. She said that if she had a physical body, she would have kicked that man's ass. The guy thought about it and realized that he needed to get to the bottom of the situation as quickly as possible and gather as much information as possible. At this moment, Jojo started poking him on the cheek, trying to attract the thoughtful guy's attention. When she succeeded, she pointed at the girl and said she was looking at him very sweetly. But when the guy looked at her, he saw the exact opposite expression on the girl's face. Meng Changji decided to distract himself from what was happening in the room and try to retrieve the memory of the owner of this body. He remembered that the owner of this body was also named Meng Changji. He was the eldest son in the family of a wealthy businessman. However, this guy did not want to study and happily visited brothels. He was a frequent guest at all the bars in town, and 10 days ago, as he was taking a stroll, he was attacked by a bunch of thugs. As it turned out, he was kidnapped by the most notorious bandits in the area. Their leader was Yin Rulan. The guys tied up and dragged her right to her. She sat on the throne and watched the guy. Her face showed the anticipation of earning from such a big catch. But the Meng family had no reaction to the kidnapping. Then the group decided that the best way out of the situation would be to sell it. But their plans backfired. Because last night the Dark Shadow came to the guy's cabin unexpectedly. This Dark Shadow ruthlessly took the guy's soul and left the bandits with only Meng Changji's dying body. Meng Changji couldn't figure out what kind of monster it was that sounded like a village tale. Benda Meow guessed that by monster, he meant the weakest type of demon, the mountain demon. She said that it would be better to improve its abilities so that it wouldn't be a problem in the future. The boy realized that he knew nothing about this world at all, but the cat hurriedly reassured him and told him that he could rely on her. Jojo began to tell him that there were 10 levels that could temper his body. Each time he passed a level, his strength would increase. After these words from Benda Meow, the guy remembered that he didn't know what his system was capable of yet. He hastened to fix it. The guy called up the system's tablet and read the data that was already there. Benda Meow noticed that she had already been entered as his assistant. Jojo noticed that the guy already had 3 experience points. She assumed it was because he had eaten a rare pill. The cat explained to the guy that for every 10 experience points, he would gain 1 level. Meng Changji wondered what this points section was. The system explained that it was a general consumable that he would be able to use to improve the carrier's strength. The guy wondered how he could get these points, and the system explained he would get them if he performed a sudden action. The guy thought about it and realized that the points would come in large quantities if he understood how the system worked. Meng Changji told Jojo that he thought the point system was a bit old-fashioned and stupid, but apparently it was because of what the system involved. The cat got angry because of this. Benda Meow said that she was a demon that was created through the 4 cycles. The boy asked if creating demons was such a complicated process. Jojo became a little nervous and admitted that because she was currently in a state of lost spirit, she had forgotten a lot of things. Something caught the guy's attention. He saw that the job description called it surprise, and an idea came to him. He got up from the floor, showed the cat a thumbs up, and said he had found a solution to the problem. He headed for the door, folding his arms across his chest, and shouted for the old man to open the door quickly and get inside. The man swung the door open angrily at the guy. What was he doing here? The guy tilted his head down a little and slowly started, he didn't even know how to say it. Then he stopped talking, threw his hand up, and slapped the man in front of him with force. After that, he was rewarded with 1 point. The man was very angry at the slap. He raised his fist and threatened the boy with death. But Meng Changji didn't waver and asked why he thought they were ordered to capture him. The boy fearlessly stated that if a man wasn't afraid to die, let him try to mess up his face. The man froze in incomprehension and tried to figure out what he meant. Was there any other reason why the boss had ordered him to be caught? Meng Changji started to press on and said why keep a hostage who can't be blackmailed and why they called the most famous doctor to cure him. Suddenly the man backed away and started yelling that this couldn't be happening. He was pointing his finger at the guy in a panic and yelling that the boss couldn't possibly be in love with him. The guy got another point from the system and smugly told the man that he wasn't as stupid as he seemed. He complimented him on his quick guess. The man started bowing down in front of the guy and apologizing to him. For this, he got another point. Beng Damiao watched in shock. Meng Changji was very pleased with himself. Jojo tried to understand how such a thing was even possible, but it was hard for her to accept it. Thanks to his oratory skills, after a short while, all of his subordinates were already being served by Meng Changji. They did absolutely whatever the guy ordered them to do, and he got points for almost every such action he took. He ordered them to change food that he didn't like and alcohol if it wasn't to his taste. Ben DeMeo asked, to earn points you had to yell at the servants, but then why did the points stop appearing? The guy explained to the cat that the main thing about getting points is that the person talking to him didn't expect this behavior of his. The cat asked what to do now that they were used to it, and Meng Changji shifted his gaze to the girl who was sitting in the corner. The guy claimed he wasn't getting anything more from them, so now it was the girl's turn. Ben DeMeo asked why now if he ignored her all the time before. To this, the guy replied that her name was Li Feilei. She was a famous doctor and despised the owner of this body. Ben DeMeo questioned his determination to talk to the girl. After all, she hates him. But the guy calmed her down and told her he had a plan. He walked up to the girl and brought her a whole chicken carcass. She was very surprised when she saw it. Meng Changji said that thanks to her, he's fine, and there's booze and food here. He asked if she could help him. Jojo watched this action admiringly, and said no matter how badly she treated him, as long as he uses food as bait, the girl will not be able to refuse. The girl turned away and said she only saved him because she was a doctor. The cat was upset that the plan hadn't worked. But Meng Changji had already finished the leg from the chicken. He said that she had misunderstood him. He had already eaten everything on his plate, and he said that he had only said about helping, but he didn't have time to finish. He continued that he wanted to ask the girl to put the dishes away. She didn't expect that, and the guy got a point. Jojo was shocked and asked how he was going to befriend her in this way. Meng Changji said that he didn't intend to be friends with her. He just wanted glasses. Kat looked upset and wondered if it was too cruel to the girl. The guy replied that in a short period of time he had collected a lot of points for improvement, which is success, and maybe someday apologize to her. He shifted his gaze back to the girl and suggested she go clean up. Li Feilei stared at him unhappily for a while the guy was already anticipating his prize. After the girl exhaled, she took the plate and went to fulfill Meng Changji's request. The boy was surprised by this turn of events. Ben Damiao said that no points were added. She asked if the system was broken, but Meng Changji that it wasn't about the system. It was because they had met a master. Jojo asked what kind of master. The guy explained that the girl stood taller than him, so she was able to anticipate his actions. And the cat realized that they didn't get the points because the girl expected them to behave that way. Suddenly there was a loud cry asking what was going on here. Guy and the cat turned at the sound. A girl with red hair stood in the aisle surrounded by her subjects and everyone worshipped her. This girl turned out to be the head of Yin Rulan. She grudgingly turned to one of the servants and asked him what he was doing here. The head looked at the servants who were boasting to her that they had created the most favorable conditions for her son-in-law. The woman didn't know what they were talking about at all, so she asked them who they meant. At this moment, Meng Changji's voice was heard. He said that they were talking about him. He began to praise the beauty of the girl standing in front of him and confessed that 1,000 words would not be enough to describe his feelings. Yin Rulan drew her sword. She wondered what the hell he was talking about. She concluded that he was good at manipulating people and had brainwashed her boys like that. But the guy didn't give up and continued to assert that everything he had just said was pure truth. The servants watched this altercation and began to doubt that they were really together. But Meng Changji suddenly fell to his knees and grabbed the woman's leg. Yin Rulan stared at him in shock. The guy yelled that he hadn't intentionally deceived them about her being in love with him and apologized for lying. He begged to be spared. Everyone in the room was shocked and points began to be added one by one. Even Yin Rulan completely didn't expect such a thing from the confident guy who was standing in front of her just a second ago. She became very angry and ordered him to be locked up immediately. As the servants began to lead the boy away, she added that if he threw something out again, they could do whatever they wanted to him. Meng Changji was thrown into the corner of the room again and ordered to keep a close eye on him, or else the head would chop off the head of anyone who didn't keep an eye on it. Ben Damiao was very angry that things had turned out this way, and asked the guy why he didn't use the enhancement points and interrupt them all. Meng Changji said that Yin Rulan was an extraordinary warrior, and she was famous throughout the city. And it was foolish to stick her head into a fight without even knowing how much improvement points would be enough. Plus, they also didn't know how long it would take. Jojo agreed that it was reasonable. Meng Changji smiled and said that now it was reinforcement time. Beng Damiao couldn't wait for her to be able to demonstrate her magic. They had a total of 96 points when they pressed improve. The upgrades sprinkled one after another. Jojo watched the invincible upgrade. Instead of the expected improvement, a notice popped up that they didn't have enough points to improve. Meng Changji's experience was now 9 points. They were 1 unit of experience short of the next achievement. The guy looked at it carefully and thought that it was basically logical enough. And Ben Damiao realized why he didn't want to get into a fight. Cat asked if he was sure he didn't have the gift of foresight, and then offered to outbid all the bandits to get the missing points. The guy said she was the real villain, and Ben Damiao hugged him and said she really wanted to be the main villain. The guy hugged her back and said he would help her anyway. But at that moment, the girl handed him a bottle with some contents. When she noticed the guy looking at her, she ordered him to drink it. Meng Changji looked confused and asked why she was helping him if she couldn't stand him. Li Feilei admitted that she really hated him, but as a doctor, she had to help the sick, and warned that he would owe her later. The guy watched her go to her corner and thought she was being too direct. The boy clutched the bottle given to him in his hands and thought he would be sure to thank her. At first glance, it was a calm, clear night. The stars and the moon shone brightly all around. Yin Rulan sat on her throne with a bearskin under her feet. She twirled her dagger in her hands and thought about everything in the world. She twirled the knife in her hands and noticed how boring it was to sit here idle all day. Then she felt something strange. She couldn't understand why she felt as if something was about to happen. Yin Rulan heard a knock and realized that something had happened after all. She got up from her throne in anticipation. 2 men appeared in front of her, and 1 man was lying on a stretcher. The men asked to see what had happened to him. The woman walked over, touched his face, and realized that he had been attacked by a mountain demon. She said that unfortunately nothing could be done. A man noticed that there was a mountain demon in the mountains, despite the fact that there is a strong magical barrier. The other man assured him that it was nothing to worry about and could be easily dealt with. He said that when they were in the mountains, they gathered in groups and had sentries to make sure the demon didn't get too close. In such cases, the demons couldn't hold out for long and soon left on their own. An evil smile appeared on the face of the head, and she said that first he had eaten the hostage's soul, and now he was hurting her family, and yelled for the guards to gather everyone besides the people guarding the hostage. They gathered 5 men and went to search the mountain. At this time, Meng Changji was meditating and gathering his strength to escape. Jojo sadly asked if they couldn't start running away right now, and the guy answered her that they should wait for the right moment. The cat started rolling around on the floor and complaining that she couldn't and wouldn't wait any longer. Just at that moment, they heard the guards being approached by other servants and told that they were leaving for the mountains. Meng Changji realized that this was the perfect moment to escape and stood up from his seat. Then they heard one of the servants asking to go inside and relax. After all, the head had talked about the hostage but hadn't said anything about the girl. The guy realized someone wanted to go inside and decided to wait a bit. The door opened and an ugly man looked in. He said that he had heard about Dr. Li's beauty very much and had come to see for himself. When the man stood in front of the girl, she said she knew what he wanted to do, and it would be considered an insult to her. She warned that if he touched her, she would kill herself. The girl was very angry, though a little scared, and said that without her, the hostage would die. So if he really wants to do it, let him try. The man yelled at her that it was all lies and began to untie his belt and move closer. He continued to shout and held out his arms towards the girl, about to continue what he had started. But he didn't reach in time and was hit by Meng Changji and fell unconscious. The guy shook off his hands after the blow as if nothing had happened and turned to the girl. He asked her if it wasn't better to ask him for help in this situation. The girl looked surprised at the guy who was holding out his hand to her. The guy shook off his hands after the blow as if nothing had happened and turned to the girl. He asked her if it wasn't better to ask him for help in this situation. The girl looked surprised at the guy who was holding out his hand to her. However, the guy didn't get points for that. Li Feilei averted her gaze and said that they were not so close that she could hope for his help. Better to have no hope than to be disappointed. But just like that, the girl bowed to the guy and said she was grateful for his help anyway. Ben Damiao remarked that it was easier to learn how to fly than to get points from her. Meng Changji completely agreed with her on this. Then the guy turned toward the entrance and shouted, insulting the guards outside and drawing their attention. The strongest guard appeared in the doorway. He saw his comrade unconscious and asked the hostage how he dared to touch him. The guy arrogantly said he'd had enough and was asking him and the other guards to let them go down the mountain in peace. The guard was enraged by this arrogance of the hostage and lunged at him with his fists in a fit of rage. But Meng Changji easily dodged the blow even though it was fast. but now that his level is higher, he could easily dodge them. She noticed that it made sense. After all, the guy was level 9 and the strongest of the guards was level 6. At the commotion, the other guards came in. They were watching Meng Changji and Ashan fight. They were trying to figure out why they were fighting, and how this guy could even dodge their associates' blows. Continuing to dodge punches, the guy got 4 points and thought how unfortunate it was that there were too few spectators. Then he stopped abruptly, looked straight into the man's eyes, said he was giving him a chance and wouldn't budge. And Shan was very angry. He thought that he couldn't lose in front of his comrades, so he would put all his strength into the punch. With a shout that the boy had found his death, the man swung in Meng Changji's direction. The guy stood still quietly, and then he said it wasn't bad. But there's one thing. It seemed like not even a second had passed when the guy was right in the guard's face. He continued his sentence and said that it was too slow. With one punch, Meng Changji defeated the guard and earned himself more points. He turned to the trembling guards in the doorway and motioned for them to come in, promising he wouldn't do anything. After all, as long as they behaved well, then there was no reason for him to be a devil. Meng Changji looked sinister. The guards were shaking with fear and trying to figure out when he had managed to become so strong. In the end, everyone made the decision to surrender. Guy got a couple more points and tied up the remaining guards, ordering them to keep an eye on those sleeping. He was sure that by the time the clan leader found them, they would be long gone. Jojo said that they got 9 points from those bandits. No way can she understand how to get points from a girl. The guy chuckled that it still bothers her. Meng Changji approached the girl and stated that he wanted to protect her from the bandits and offered to run away together. The girl listened in surprise to the guy about his intention to keep her safe. Suddenly, an idea came to Meng Changji on how to get points with the help of a girl. He grabbed her hands and pressed closer, otherwise saying he was loved by many girls but still not married. With a sweet smile, he said the girl helped him save money when she gave him his medication. Li Feilei looked a little embarrassed and surprised, and that expression on her face helped the guy earn half a point. Benda Miao lamented about that. Was such a thing even possible to earn less than 1 point? But the boy urged her to see the good side of it. Meng Changji with outstretched hand offered her to run away with him. The girl stared silently at the outstretched hand, and finally began to reach out to him with her own hand. They took each other's hand, and Li Feilei still agreed to run away with Meng Changji. The moon illuminated the long mountain path, and Meng Changji turned to the girl. He admitted that while they were coming down the mountain, he had a question for her. Guy noticed that Li Feilei wasn't surprised at all when he beat up those guys. Ben Dameao confirmed that no points were added from her. The girl confessed that when she became a doctor, she learned the 4 ways of knowing the sick, and then she also learned fortune-telling. Meng Changji and Jojo didn't expect to hear such a response. The guy turned towards her, repeating her words. Ben Damiao realized that she was predicting a person's life force, and after roughly estimating abilities. Hearing this information from Jojo Guy realized that it determines the fighting ability turns out not to play dirty games with her. Li Feilei went on to say that at first she was unable to determine the guy's potential, so she couldn't judge a specific strength. Even so, during her inspection, she noticed that his level was higher than that person's strength level, therefore the victory was expected. The boy looked at the girl who was walking beside him. Finally, he realized how she had predicted his victory. Ben Dameao said that she can determine a person's experience with accuracy, so she's better than Li Feilei. Suddenly, something caught the girl's attention and she stopped, scrutinizing something ahead. When Meng Changji asked what was wrong, the girl told him that there was a guard post next, even though the clan head had ordered a search of the entire mountain. But the guards of the guard station were not allowed to leave their post. So there were 3 guards at the place where the last bridge started. Ben Dameao was considering the levels of the guys, while Meng Changji and Li Feilei were hiding behind a rock ledge. The guy looked out of hiding and Jojo said that the strength of the 2 guards was at the 2nd level and 1 at the 5th level. Ben Dameao said he could handle them with 1 hand. The boy agreed but came to the conclusion that they had to be put together. As he was trying to figure out how to do this, a girl caught his attention. He realized he'd have to ask her for help, so as not to make a fuss. The girl was surprised to hear his request. Each of the 3 guards was minding their own business. The night was very quiet and peaceful. Suddenly, they heard a voice from behind the rock. One of the boys said it sounded very much like a woman's voice. The boys tensed up. One of them asked if there could be girls from outside their camp in the mountains. They approached the place from which the girl's beautiful voice had sounded, and they pulled apart the tall grass to see what was behind it. Then they could see what was going on behind the grass. It turned out that there really was a girl there. They noticed that she had ears and a tail. A beautiful girl sat and hummed that she wished she had a man around who could melt her heart. One of the guys said that they say that it is a mountain fox fairy. She is indescribably beautiful and also lonely men can get help from her. The girl kept singing. When she started to hide behind the desk, one of the guards started running after her and asking her to wait. The other two guys grabbed his arms and stopped him from running after the girl. The guys got into a fight over it. They were trying to figure out who would stay to guard the bridge and who would go to the girl. Suddenly, a man's foot appeared in their field of vision. This caused the guards to be greatly surprised. While Dr. Lee was examining her makeshift ears, Meng Changji bragged about how well they had worked together the first time. The guards, who had already been beaten up by each other, threatened him that they were about to give him something for cheating that he couldn't imagine. At this point, a lot of points started coming to the guy. Meng Changji raised his hand for a punch and asked to be surprised, and he would love to see it. After a small amount of time, all the guards were defeated, and our main character earned 20 new points. There were just enough of them to make it better, so the guy hurriedly started it up. A notification came up saying that a new level would be available after 100 seconds. Both the guy and the cat were disappointed that for 100 points you'd have to wait as well. They were already in front of the bridge and were about to enter it. Meng Changji told the girl that this was the last obstacle in their way. The guy was holding a torch in his hands. He turned to the girl and wanted to say something to her, but he was interrupted by a sudden gust of wind that snuffed out the torch and made them shiver. Bendamiao yelled and warned the guy that there was a monster behind him. He answered her that he had already realized that and covered Li Feili with himself. At that moment, he met a burning gaze from the darkness, and a shiver ran through his body. In front of them was a giant bloodthirsty gorilla. There was a murderous aura emanating from it. The guy shouted that she had great strength, and Bendamiao remarked that their abilities were not enough to defeat the mountain demon. It wasn't just any gorilla standing in front of them. It was a real red-haired gibbon. Dr. Lee asked how this monkey could have appeared in their area, since they don't have proper bananas. The guy pointed out that this demon was very different from his memories, and Jojo explained that the demon could take possession of the corpse. In theory, it wasn't that scary, but when it's a red-haired gibbon, everything changes. Kat noticed it was the smallest one she'd ever seen. But even so, Meng Changji couldn't take it. After all, a blow that could throw a person 6 meters away would be insignificant to her. The demon in front of them came to a rage. The guy kept covering the girl with him and hoped he could handle him. According to everyone who has encountered the mountain demon, 6 people would be enough to handle it. But one of the 6-man squad that the clan head had sent out was dead. Yin Rulan stood by the corpses of her subordinates. She realized that there were exceptions to everything. She was very angry, and she couldn't believe that one mountain demon could do such a thing. Meanwhile, the demon in the gibbon's body smelled human, and not just any human, but a woman. Li Feili was reflected in the red eyes of the mountain demon. He only saw her as his prey. Jojo was surprised that the demon spoke and wondered if it had a mind. She noticed that they were no match for him now. Meng Changji asked how much time was left to improve. Benda Miao replied that it was still 30 seconds, but she wasn't sure that even then they could handle it. After all, it was not an unusual mountain demon, but a very strong, large, and most likely somewhat intelligent one. The boy wondered what it was around the demon. It was like a dark mist, and he had felt it the last time he fought. This bothered Meng Changji greatly. After all, he didn't know how he was going to deal with him. A girl came out from behind the guy and said that he couldn't handle him and his target was her. She asked him to leave so that at least one survived, but the guy intercepted her, moved closer to her, and wondered if she'd decided to write him off. Dr. Lee asked if he had an ace up his sleeve. The guy replied that he didn't seem like the kind of person who would just sacrifice himself for others. He told her that since this demon wasn't in the plans, he would charge her extra for security. When the girl was left standing still, he hurried her up and ordered her to leave quickly. She heard that she would have to kiss him as payment. The strange demon saw the girl start to walk away from him, and some pathetic guy standing in his way. He rushed in pursuit, about to demolish anything that would get in his way of the woman. But Meng Changji wasn't going to let it pass so easily, and gathering all the strength in his fist, shouted to him to keep his eyes open. The blow hit the strange demon right between the eyes, while the guy yelled that they weren't done yet. The demon shook his head a little after the blow, and the boy noticed that the barrier seemed to have robbed him of some of his strength. Meng Changji asked Jojo if he could finish her off if he threw her off the cliff while he held back the demon's blow. The cat said that this aura acts as a very weak barrier, but even through such a barrier, it can only break through if its strength is doubled. The guy was thrown back a few meters by the demon's impact, while Benda Miao said that falling from here could also hurt the demon in such a case. Meng Changji wiped the blood off his face and said that everything would be fine then. Li Feili was already on the other side and shouted to him that he could start. A mountain demon in the body of a red-haired gibbon with burning red eyes screamed loudly and spat saliva in different directions. The boy beckoned him behind him and walked into the middle of the bridge, and the demon followed him in a burst of anger. Jojo tearfully asked the guy to hurry up and do what he had saved, whatever he had planned there. The guy ordered Ben Damao to watch carefully, jumping up and breaking the bridge. Li Feili and Jojo looked at what the guy was doing with horror on their faces, realizing that he would be doomed if he fell. And the guy started flying down the cliff, screaming smash and crash. after he broke the bridge. The girl watched the guy fall and tears started to form in her eyes. She said he wasn't capable of doing such a thing after all. As Meng Changji flew down, he noticed that the reward had arrived. Ben Dameao noticed that even now, the girl had only given half a point. The next moment, the dark aura of a mountain demon began to condense around the guy's leg. Ben Dameao panicked that there was no way they would escape him now. The demon drew them closer and closer to strike. But Meng Changji, at this moment, also swung his hand in for a retaliatory strike. As he flew at the demon, he tried to concentrate as much power as he could in his fist. And when their fists met, a huge shockwave formed around them. Jojo was shocked that this time he was able to deal with the demon and perhaps even turned out to be stronger. The guy got an alert from the system that he had mined the first stage of power, and the guy could feel the power increasing in his body. While the guy was fighting, he asked Jojo to use the remaining improvement points right now. Ben Dameao hurriedly ran the errand and reported that it took 2 points per improvement, and they had 19 points in total. She shared her worries that she was afraid they might not have enough points to defeat the demon. But the boy assured her that everything would be all right. After all, he had the strength to break through that barrier, and his blow plus a fall from a height would have to end it all. Jojo happily agreed with this, and the guy in flight opened his palm and began to concentrate his power in it. The decision was made to strike now, and he collided with the red-haired gibbon in mid-air. It was as if light was pouring out of the guy's hand and he had a victorious smile on his face. Meng Changji's eyes reflected the red light from the strange mountain demon's aura. Then with the hardest punch of his life, the guy hit the mountain demon. Meng Changji shouted that he would destroy it, and the demon flew down the cliff with terrifying force. In the cleft lay spears, skeletons, bridge debris, various swords, and it all looked like a massacre site. Meng Changji didn't think that there would be something like this. Because of this, he didn't know what to say. The guy was beaten up enough and looking at this landscape felt that war would always exist. They sat on the defeated demon and Ben Dameao said he had a strange feeling. Meng Changji asked her what was wrong, and the cat said that she could sense a similar power to the guy nearby, which was most likely a missing part of the system. The guy thought about it. If there are a lot of unlocked features in this system, if he could find the missing pieces, he could unlock them. Meng Changji's attention was caught by a strange flow of strange wind that was coming from somewhere behind him. The guy went in his direction and said that this wind was not like the usual wind. Ben Dameao noticed that even though the wind wasn't that strong, it was too pressing and like magic. As they got closer to it, they realized that this breath belonged to a beast from the spirit city, and there was a treasure buried somewhere nearby. Jojo explained that it was a wind of exile, and it was basically incapable of destroying anything. However, it could carry people away. After that, they saw the sinister face of a beast. The wind currents were strong and blew them off their feet. Meng Changji realized that the beast was guarding the treasure and they could get it by fighting the guardian. However, it was not strong enough at the moment. The wind kept getting stronger and the guy realized he couldn't stand on his feet anymore. Guy and Ben Dameao were abruptly lifted into the air and began to drift away in an unknown direction. They were swirled in the currents of the tornado, and the wind carried them away from the cleft. When the guy came to his senses, the sun was shining and there were strange islands of land all around. Meng Changji was lying on the ground. When he opened one eye, he saw a girl on top of him. It had ears and different eyes, and the boy realized that it was Jojo in human form. The girl called out to him and gently touched the boy's cheek, but Meng Changji couldn't hear what she was saying. The girl moved closer to his face. She looked very concerned about his condition. The next moment, the guy came to his senses as the real cat Jojo was sitting on top of him and pounding his face with his paws. When Ben Dameao saw that the guy was awake, she got very excited and said that the invigorating cat claw technique was very effective. The guy took her off by the scruff of her neck, trying to realize that Beauty and Jojo are one demon. He looked around and wondered where they were now. That wind could kill ordinary people, so you could say they were lucky. Ben Dameao winked at the guy and said that they were carried away not far from Shanshan. Meng Changji exhaled and said that he had to find his way first, so he could ask someone for help. They had been walking along the mountain path for quite some time now. Meng Changji was already very tired. As he walked along the road, he kept stumbling. He was always hungry. Jojo said that when you go to the next level, the body consumes a lot of energy, so you need to eat a lot of food. And on top of that, they also ran away and then fought a huge demon. While they were talking, the boy tripped over a rock, and they fell straight to the ground. They resented the fact that they had not met a single human being in the whole time. Their bellies rumbled and they were so hungry that their stomachs ached. They heard a bell ringing, and the boy thought he heard something. It was a grandfather driving a bull, and there was a little girl sitting on that bull. The girl called her grandfather and showed him that there was someone lying on the road. The man took a closer look and realized that his granddaughter was right. The girl looked at the guy's clothes and noticed that he was from a rich family. She wanted to help him. Meng Changji didn't even have the strength to move a finger. His eyes closed on their own, and he blurred as he saw a figure approaching. The girl was holding the boy's hand and smiling happily. She told her grandfather that the boy was not dead yet. The old man who saved Meng Changji was named Li Dali, and his granddaughter was Li Erzai. They were from the village of Lijiakun. The rest of their family had passed away too soon in life, so they became dependent on each other. Old man Li Dali smiled good-naturedly and asked him to eat and not to be shy. When Meng Changji had eaten, Beng Da Miao had also eaten. Because of the system, the guy and the demon were connected, and she felt the same as him. Li Erzai offered the guy to take a glass of water and drink. Meng Changji thanked her sincerely and accepted the cup of water. The boy was very grateful to these people for finding him. He asked his grandfather if he knew how to get to Xianshan City. Grandpa knew and offered to take his cow, but Meng Changji thanked him and said that 8 miles wasn't much for him, so he would get there by himself. Li Erzai asked the guy with burning eyes if it was true that Xianshan village had a lot of delicious food. The guy patted the joyful girl on the top of her head and said that if she liked to eat good food, he would take her with him so they could eat together. But Li Dali ordered his granddaughter not to cause unnecessary inconvenience to their guest. The girl was upset about it. Meng Changji started looking for something in his pockets and said that he didn't even know how to repay them for their hospitality. He found a jade pendant in his possession and offered to take it as a token of gratitude, but Grandpa refused because it was too expensive. Then the boy suggested going hunting and bringing them some game. Li Dali agreed, but asked him to be careful because the rich might be attacked by Yin Rulan. Ben Da Miao was surprised that they had been here for so long and still hadn't gotten a single point. Meng Changji told her that it was all because there were good people living here. The boy bowed, thanked me for my concern, and promised that he would be fine. He left the house and walked westward. In this way, he got as far as the forest. There was plenty of game in the forest. He caught a boar and 2 pheasants. They were on their way back to the village when they had a small altercation with Ben Da Miao. She wanted to taste the meat, and the boy told her it was impossible. Jojo tapped Meng Changji on the head and said that if he was eating, so was she. The guy laughed and promised to take some game with him. Something new and strange caught the boy's eye. It hadn't been there when they'd gone into the forest. Outside the house was a wagon that was familiar to the original owner of the body. The man kicked the vase with all his might and screamed that there was nothing there. The man broke another bowl and saw that it was empty too. He started shouting at the old man in an attempt to find out where he had hidden the money. Li Erzai was hiding behind his grandfather's back. Li Dali asked the bandits what they wanted. After all, they had paid them 3 days ago. The man smiled wickedly and said that if they had eaten 3 days ago, did they need to eat today too? The man also said that everyone in the village had paid the rent. Only this family had not paid enough. He asked how he should explain this to the landlord. The grandfather admitted that they had given their last money and had nothing left. However, the man did not believe him and said that then he would find a way out himself. One of the man's assistants grabbed the girl and offered to sell her to a brothel to pay off his debt. The grandfather threw himself on his knees in front of the man and begged him to let his granddaughter go. He promised to do anything. Well, the man only punched Li Dali hard enough to make his mouth bleed. Li Erzai watched with tears in her eyes as she was held by someone else's hands. She bit the man who held her by the wrist with all her strength and anger. The man pushed the girl away from him and yelled at her that she would pay for it. She ran up to her grandfather, who was lying on the floor, and asked if he was okay. Grandpa promised that he would die, but would not let them take her away. The man looked irritated at the couple and said that if he was so willing to sacrifice himself, then let him. The man's assistant began to stretch his arms in preparation to give Li Dali a good beating. But just at that moment, another man's strong punch flew into his face. He was thrown aside with such force that the wall of the house broke where he landed. Meng Changji stood in a fighting stance and asked the bandits if they were sure it would be like this. The main man stared at the guy in shock, trying to figure out how this happened. He didn't even have time to notice anything. Li Erzai was very happy when she saw who had come. She told her grandfather that it was her brother who had come to help them. Meng Changji was rewarded with 2 points and promised his grandfather that he would handle the bandits. Ben Da Miao was very angry. One of the bandits tried to intimidate Meng Changji and said that they were 3rd chapter people, so the guy should kneel down and beg for forgiveness. But those words didn't work on Meng Changji, and he slapped one of the bandits and asked what would happen to him for that. The humiliated guy was holding his tooth that had come out, his face covered in blood, and he was saying that the head would not let him go. But Meng Changji suggested that he take better care of himself and threw another punch. The bandit had lost consciousness, and that upset Meng Changji because he didn't even have time to warm up. But then the guy looked around and saw that he had forgotten about the main bully of these thugs. The man tried to avoid a fight. He backed off and said that Meng Changji might offend the 3rd head if he defended the Li family. But Meng Changji said with a smile on his face that he didn't know who the 3rd head was, and had done nothing wrong to his subordinates. The main man dropped to his knees in front of the guy. He started to justify himself, saying that those two were to blame for everything. Ben DeMeo was angry because they had heard the man's voice and knew the truth. Demon prized such people. Meng Changji admitted that he was too kind-hearted, so if he asked for mercy, so be it. Beng DeMeo was not satisfied with that. The main man thanked Meng Changji and hurriedly crawled away before he changed his mind. He was already mentally looking for someone to kill him. But Meng Changji stopped him. He asked if he had permission to leave. Meng Changji said that only if the man completed 10,000 of his errands could he be free. The demon appreciated such a move. The man asked in shock about the number of assignments. Meng Changji said that since he didn't have enough, he could easily add up to 20,000. Ben DeMeo said that wasn't enough, but the boy assured her that he could always add more. Half a day had passed, and the sounds of hard work could be heard from the Lee family's cabin. The boy said that since these people had harmed them, they should now work instead of cattle. Lee Erzai supported the fellow, and Meng Changji added that the bandits would bring no trouble and could be sent to another village. All three bandits were terribly battered and continued to work the fields despite their fatigue. Some guy came running to Lee's family and panickedly asked them to leave as soon as possible. Lee Dali tried to calm the boy down and asked what happened. The young man said that the third chapter in the village. Meng Changji asked who this leader was, that they were also afraid of him, and Jojo said she would deal with him. The old man explained that his name was Tang Sanbao. 3 years ago, his strength had increased to the second stage. Meng Changji asked why the government wouldn't do anything to him. How could he just go around looting? But Grandpa explained that 2 years ago he joined the main family and was allowed to collect rent. The kid realized that he was just taking advantage of the Meng family's authority. Grandpa wanted to listen to the kid and invite Meng Changji to go with them. But Meng Changji was no longer there, and it was as if he had disappeared. Tang Sanbao was walking through the village and asked who beat up his subordinates and helped Old Man Lee. When he found out that they had already escaped, Tan Sanbao grinned and said that he would not let them just escape. Meng Changji was watching this picture from one of the rooftops. He asked Jojo how many points they had. Demon said they had 180 points and asked if they could earn more. Meng Changji held a blade of grass in his mouth and replied to her that of course they could. This guy would definitely be happy to meet the one who beat up his men. Tang Sanbao was holding a man tightly. He asked where the Lee family and the man who helped them had gone. One of the deputies brought his woman and their child in for questioning. The man got down on his knees and said he really didn't know where they had gone. He asked for his wife and child to be released. Tang Sanbao didn't believe the man, so he forcibly lifted him to his feet and started shouting that they were covering them up. At this moment, Meng Changji's voice rang out. He said that all the people in these parts had heard of the third master, and now he had met him as well. Tang Sanbao raised his head at the sound of the voice, and saw a man on the roof. He asked who he was, and ordered him to come down immediately. The guy said he showed up as a free cloud and a free crane, and his name didn't matter. Meng Changji smiled arrogantly, and said, if he was so interested, let him call him Wild. After that, a lot of awards started coming in, and the people downstairs looked at him, some with admiration, some with incomprehension. Ben DeMeo was happy that with a few beautiful words, they had gotten so many new points. Now they could improve to the second stage of strength. The subordinates of the third head who were at the guy's disposal. They threw petals and argued over which side they should take. Tang Sanbao stared at the guy in incomprehension and asked if he should call him Wild. Meng Changji continued to stand on the roof and smiled smugly. He praised the head for his ingenuity. This arrogant behavior made Tang Sanbao terribly angry. He ordered him not to be impertinent. In that burst of anger, he struck out with his fist and formed a fire dragon. The boy wondered how he managed to release the dragon from his hand, but the demon explained to him that such a thing was possible when he reached the second level. That was the Tianshu technique. It helps to release energy. Jojo said that it would take another 40 seconds to improve the skill. The guy stood in front of Tang Sanbao and reassured Jojo. He was confident that they would make it through. A man in the crowd recognized this guy as the one who had helped the Lee family. Someone suggested that he had come back to rescue them. Tang Sanbao called for a fight against him. His subordinates said it was time to beg for mercy. Meng Changji ordered them to shut up, and said that he thought the Meng family should be above this. Guy said that the Meng mansion used to be known for its kindness and justice, but now they cover their vile deeds with the family's name and steal its honor. This kind of speech from Meng Changji gave him another bunch of points from the people in the village. Tang Sanbao's aides felt a frightening aura, but the head calmed them down and said that he could only throw around words. Angry Tang Sanbao said he was part of the Meng family and represented its interests, and raised his hand to strike. The third head ordered him to bow before him. However, Meng Changji stood there and didn't even try to dodge. When Tang Sanbao's fist was already in front of him, the guy placed the jade pendant in front of him. Meng Changji held the pendant in front of him and said that the head should know what it was. Tang Sanbao froze, never having struck all the way, and exclaimed that it was a jade pendant. The guy introduced himself and stated that as of this moment stripped him of his authority on the land, and now he does not represent the main family. Now all the residents looked at him with admiring eyes. They were sure that the eldest son of the Meng family would protect them. The guy got a bunch more points for this reaction from the villagers. Tang Sanbao looked at the guy in front of him with doubt and horror, and couldn't believe that he was really the eldest son of the family. Meng Changji tossed the pendant in his hand and said that they could easily go to the mansion and make sure. But the third head declared that he didn't care who he was. He began to concentrate the energy in his hand to strike. He shouted with anger in his voice that even if he was the eldest son, he would die right here and now, and was about to strike the unarmed Meng Changji with a flame dragon. The older son tried to hold back the blow, and for a while he even succeeded. But then the energy threw him back with great force. All the villagers were very worried about the Meng family's eldest son. The third head's aides tried to tell him not to kill the eldest son of the family, but he wouldn't listen to them. While they were discussing that they would have to kill all the witnesses, a strange sound was heard. Tang Sanbao turned around and saw Meng Changji around, who had blue energy. Benda Miao congratulated them on their promotion. Meng Changji pushed himself up from his seat and asked if he was as strong as he said he was. The guy rushed to attack Tang Sanbao using the second level of strength. The eldest son of the Meng family knocked out his opponent with one punch, and said he could handle him without even practicing. After his victory over Tang Sanbao, his minions begged for mercy. They all promised to help the villagers. The three guys who were already supposed to be running errands were upset that the third chapter didn't save them. All the villagers began to approach Mr. Meng and thank him for saving them. Meng Changji said that just because he saved them from robbers doesn't mean he can be relied on. Suddenly he took the land charter for other purposes. A wicked smile appeared on his face, and he said that in addition to rent, there would now be per capita taxes, pension levies, a protection tax, and a tax on innocent virgins. All the villagers were upset by this news. They realized that having escaped the tiger's clutches, they had fallen into the jaws of the wolf. The guy laughed loudly and explained that he was joking. The residents relaxed and said he had scared them to death. Meng Changji said with a cheerful smile that he would only take one beauty and hold a contest to choose a worthy maid. The residents were scared again, but the guy quickly admitted he was joking, and told them that he had already received his prize. Benda Miao was looking at all the points they had gotten for this conversation, and tried to figure out how big the prize would be if this was considered small. Thus, the eldest son of the Meng family had gotten more than 1,000 points. He would be able to get a little more, but he would have to try harder. After he trained Tang Sanbao's men to obey the villagers, he left the village and traveled by wagon to reach Xianshan. His wagon was pulled by 3 guys who were attacking the Li family. They were walking and complaining to each other why they had to put up with such treatment. In the end, they came to the point where they certainly remained servants. But if you consider the fate of the third chapter, it's even worse. Meng Changji's voice could be heard from the wagon, asking what they were muttering about. If they didn't speed up soon, they would receive a surprise gift. Benda Miao said that she was sure they would be able to level up with the points they received, but it turned out that level 3 required 400 points, and level 4 required 800 points. The guy controlled the energy in his palm and said that after the 3rd level, the strength of his QE should increase. He asked the demon to tell him what kind of improvements had taken place. Jojo said that one should first find out the path of skills from people. After all, after completing the 9 basic points of purification, one would be able to lay the foundation and then practice magic. Usually, people temper their body and stimulate their own QE through bodily exercises. These types of exercises are not included in the Shangzi Sutra series of books. One of them is Teng She. There was also an earth, Gongcheng. The next path was the birth of all things, Canglong. There was also a war constellation called Baihu, and the last 2 are the emptiness of Skein Ming and the inner strength of Huanqiang. Benda Miao explained that the technique that Tang Sanbao was learning was written based on the dung serpent. Demon bragged that she still remembered the contents of all 6 books, and suggested that the boys start practicing an hour a day. But Meng Changji said he wasn't interested. This made Benda Miao angry. The guy looked at her and asked what was the point of him training when he could handle more problems with brute force. Plus, the guy said he doesn't see the point of strengthening the body when you can just add a couple of points to improve the absorption of the 9 basic physical activities. The demon agreed with him, and they heard the boys telling them that they had already arrived at Guanshan City. The boy looked out of the wagon and saw the great city wall. He wondered why a pale inscription appeared on it. Jojo explained that it was an inscription to protect the city from demons. Then he heard someone ordering him to get out of the way. When he turned around, he saw that it was the repatriates from the Hai family entering the city. Jojo wondered who they were and why they were so arrogant. And the guy explained to her that the Hai family was the 3rd largest, and their families have conflicts. Benda Miao asked how this was possible, and Meng Changji began to explain to her. But they were interrupted. They were apologized to for disturbing them and apologized for their rudeness. It was the eldest son of the Ji family. He was the eldest son of the first most influential family. Meng Changji got out of the carriage and joked unpleasantly at their interlocutor. He expected to get points, but he could only get it from the servants. Mr. Ji remained adamant. With this behavior of his, he surprised Beng Damiao and intrigued Meng Changji. It was good weather as they approached the extreme city of Sanshan. Ben Damiao warned the guy that all these people were pretty strong. Changji said that the guards of the owner of this body were also strong. A gentleman from the Ji family was riding a white horse. He pulled up alongside the carriage and asked what the young master's name was. Jojo said that he had reached the 3rd level, and Changji introduced himself as Chengwu Ji and said that perhaps 500 years ago they were related. Such an assumption offended Mr. Ji's escorts, but he himself only smiled and said that they were then bound. Mr. Ji asked what kind of wagon it was, and Changji explained that they were sect members and were practicing that way. The guys were all sweaty and tired, but confirmed this version. Changji asked not to look at them like that because it was just a practice, and the boys started posing. Then Mr. Ji asked what the man behind was doing. Changji explained that he was practicing hunger and endurance. He turned to the guys and asked them if that was the case. All 3 of them nodded vigorously in affirmation of his words, and they said that the older brother was practicing like that. The gentleman's companions discussed that it is not surprising that there is a sect that practices self-abuse. Mr. Ji bowed and invited them to come to Ji's house after entering the city. He said they could become friends. Meng Changji replied that he didn't know how long he would be here, and passed the separating horses with a glance. Suddenly the guy realized that he could still hear Ji Chengwu and the others talking. The demon explained that it was because he had cleansed his body 3 times. One of the guards told Mr. Ji that they didn't know where these guys came from or if they came for the relics. Mr. Ji winked at his guard and told him to tell him everything later. Meng Changji rode in his wagon and wondered what these relics were. He came to the conclusion that Ji Chengwu is very attentive. An aura began to thicken around the guy again, and he ordered a move. When they reached Sanshan City, it was already dark, but Meng Changji didn't go straight home. He had 3 places to visit first, and send a sincere blessing. He let the 3 boys go to wait for orders. After all, he wasn't a fiend. Let them see their families. Each of the trio had their own family. He and Tang Sanbao went to his house, and Changji asked the one how he had been left without a family. Tang Sanbao sat on his knees in front of the guy and vowed to tell him everything he was interested in. Meng Changji said that even though he recognized him as a member of the Meng family, still tried to kill him. How dare he dare to do that? Tang Sanbao said it was all Mr. Meng's new wife, Mrs. Liu. Demon was shocked that his second mom might want to hurt him, but the boy asked not to jump to conclusions. Tang Sanbao began his story. He had been summoned to the mansion 10 days ago and ordered to look for a guy outside the city, and if he found one, to kill him. Mrs. Liu gave him Jade Bodhi as a reward for his deed. Meng Changji pondered that the Jade Bodhi in their family was only one. Beng Damiao explained that Jade Bodhi is a rare treasure. It can be used to restore ki. If a person consumes it as a pill, they can improve their skills. If one was full of chi, one's skills would strengthen and level up, which could be useful. Meng Changji realized that this was a good thing. The lad leaned over to his captive and told him to give him the Jade Bodhi then. Tang Sanbao admitted that they were hidden, but he would take him there. They found a Jade Bodhi in an abandoned house. The boy held it in his hands and felt his body fill with energy. Tang Sanbao turned to the guy. He said that he couldn't forge such a thing, and Mrs. Liu is now at the Meng mansion. Sanbao said it might be dangerous to go back, but the guy arrogantly said he would decide for himself. Ben Damiao was glad they didn't go home right away, but the boy said he was going to go there anyway. He clutched the Jade Bodhi in his hands and said he was going to pretend to be an unsuspecting sheep. After the interrogation, Meng Changji ordered a member to keep an eye on Tang Sanbao. The latter gladly took up the assignment. After that, the guy snuck into the Meng mansion. Turns out the Meng family didn't respond to the ransom. Instead, they buried their eldest son beforehand. The guy saw the old servant and was glad to see Fubo. The demon asked who he was, and the boy explained that he had looked after him as a child. Then they heard someone coming. It was the second lord and his minions. They came to teach him a lesson. Fubo said that he met all the requirements and unwaveringly served the Meng family. And the second lady shouldn't have treated the other servants like that. The young man got angry and decided to remind the old man, who was now the head of the family, deciding that demotion was not enough for him. Jojo asked who was that person who was so rude to the old man, and the guy recognized him as Meng Changming, the half-brother of that body. Meng Changming left, but ordered his minions to teach the old man a lesson. Ben Damiao started to worry that Fubo was about to be beaten, but Changji was calm and told her not to worry. He concentrated the energy around his finger and summoned a wind he could control. The wind blew out all the candles in the room and frightened Changmin's minions. All three of them began to look up and tried to figure out who was here and why it had gotten so cold. Demon asked when he learned to release ki energy like that. The guy replied that after he got the 3rd level of strength, his control improved. Fubo started crying and asked if the spirit of the eldest son was here. Changmin's minions were frightened by the ghost and hurriedly got out of the room. The guy got about 10 points for all of this. The guy was pleased with himself and asked how Fubo was doing. The demon said he was still pouring water from the unclean. Fubo tells them that the master has a strange illness, and everyone must now listen to the second lady and her son. Now, Meng Changji understood why the second lady wanted to get rid of him. In order to consolidate her power, she had to get rid of all the loyal servants and her eldest son. Fubo went on to say that the second son had harmed the Gihai family, and the mistress made the servants take his guilt upon themselves. He said that many industries of the Meng family have been appropriated by the Gihai family, and he can't do anything about it. Meng Changji made the decision to cheer up Fubo. Jojo thought that he wanted to tell him that he was alive, but the guy started pretending to be a ghost and called out to Fubo. The old servant looked up and asked if it was true about the eldest son. The ghost told Fubo that he came back because of injustice. He asked his servant to help him make things right. Fubo said that the old servant should listen to his eldest son's instructions. The next morning, the minions made excuses that the hall had indeed been haunted the previous night. But the second son did not believe them. Mrs. Liu tried to calm him down, but to no avail. One of the guests thought that Meng Changmin was just a pacifier, and most of the family's responsibilities fell on his shoulders. His main rival by far was Ji Chengwu. He was handsome and was loved by the girls. Suddenly, there were shouts from the side of the entrance. Both the second son and Mrs. Liu looked over there. There they saw a whole crowd of servants with placards. They demanded justice, that they be given back the money they had earned. The second son lost his temper again and was not going to calm down despite his mother's plea. He was angry at her too, even when she asked him not to fall in the mud in front of Xianshan's powerful families. Mrs. Liu turned to Fubo. She said that only those who had done wrong were punished, and he dares to ask for some kind of compensation for them. But the old servant disagreed, and he said that they were vilified and they were just doing their job. Fubo said that it was because of the second son's fault. He, in turn, ran up, grabbed the old servant by the chest and began to shout at him. Fubo admitted that the ghost of his eldest son had come last night, but Changmin only laughed at the old man and called Meng Changjie. All the servants were shocked at this attitude of the second son towards the deceased. But Changmin just broke the plaque with the dead man's name on it and said that was disrespectful. The second son stood smug and had a wicked smile on his face. He said that he could not see any spirit. Everyone present looked behind the Meng family's second son's back in shock. Fubo tearfully looked at the person behind the second son and asked if these Meng Changji were really Meng Changji. The eldest son put his hand on Meng Changming's shoulder and scolded him for such behavior. The second son turned around and saw Meng Changji in front of him, asking how he was doing. The young man fell to the floor. He was in tears and begged his brother's forgiveness for disturbing his soul. Meng Changji sat confidently and asked him not to be so intimidated. He suggested that they meet and have a drink together. All the guests were scared of the ghost, and then realized that the town was too well protected, and this guy is human. Mrs. Liu was angry that Fubo had brought a charlatan who had scared the Meng family. The servant tried to justify himself, but the second lady would not listen to him. She said she had been prepared for this. Mrs. Liu asked Dao's Jinshu to save them, and the monk gladly agreed to destroy the target. The monk prepared to strike, and the guests wondered if Mrs. Meng had hired him. People whispered that the monk was extraordinary, and this year, Fang Qingguan would participate in the Fairy Gate. The Gihai family's eldest son was looking at the monk carefully, and he realized that he could be a competitor in the selection. The monk advised his opponent to surrender and pointed his sword at him. He warned that if he resisted, he would have no choice. The monk prepared for battle, and the spectators marveled at the shadowy phantom he had created. The spectators were discussing amongst themselves that people with 3rd level and strong QE were capable of such a thing. One of Mr. G's subordinates apologized that their information about the monk was out of date. Meng Changji patted the monk and said that he must be getting a lot from the street shows. The monk aimed his punch at Meng Changji. He called him a stubborn man who wants to die. Fubo was startled and shouted at the Meng family's eldest son to dodge the blow. The second son laughed evilly and said that Fang Qingguan was from a sect funded by the Meng family, and the boy wouldn't be able to pretend in front of the master. Beng Dameao supported Changji, and he defeated the monk with one punch. All the guests were shocked by Meng Changji's victory, and the second son decided that the brother was really a ghost. Fubo ran to Mr. Changji's house. All the servants were happy that he had survived, and the boy promised to restore justice. People couldn't believe that this was really the eldest son of the Meng family. After all, they had come to his funeral. Mr. G turned to Changji. He said that he didn't think they would meet again. but now it was clear that his last name was not Ji. Changji said he had a strange premonition and regretted lying. He shifted his gaze to his stepmother. She was heartbroken and didn't know how to behave with the eldest son of the Meng family. The eldest son said he would resolve all family issues and asked that no false rumors be spread in town. The guests continued to talk amongst themselves and said that they hadn't expected Meng Changzi to be so strong. The guy who planned to lead the Meng family stepped into his carriage, and when he was already in it, he ordered his servants to leave. One of the servants noticed that Mr. Meng didn't seem like an easy opponent and doubted that they would be able to take away the Meng family's property. But the boy didn't doubt his strength. The carriages began to move away from the main family home. The frightened servant tried to apologize to Mr. Ji, but all he got in return was a hard punch in the face and a destroying gaze. Mr. Ji asked how he dared to miss out on such a strong opponent. Meng Changji sat in the hall of his house, surrounded by his family and servants. He looked at the income book and saw that the Meng family was making a lot of losses. He looked at his stepmother and brother and wondered what to do about them. They stood tensely across from him, and the stepmother tried to justify that they had been slipped a nameless corpse, and they couldn't find a place for their grief. Ben de Miao recalled that his family had hired someone to kill him, while the guy looked at his family with a pensive expression. The system unlocked a whole bunch of different missions, challenges, and also one hidden mission. Jojo wondered what the hidden mission was, and the guy was considering notifications that if he completed this hidden mission, he would be unlocked a new harmony, immortal. The guy let his family go and said he had heard about his father's illness and wanted to visit him. He asked the two men to think about their actions. Mrs. Liu said that they would be honest, so as not to make Changzi troublesome. Meng Changji came to his ailing father's bedside with his old servant Fu Bo. His father looked very exhausted and was sleeping soundly on his bed. The boy asked if they shouldn't have called a doctor when Dad got sick, but it turned out that the doctors didn't know what was wrong with him. One of the servants overheard the conversation outside the door, while the servant Fu Bo said that they didn't have enough power to invite the monks. This did not escape the Meng family's shrewd eldest son. Jojo also told him so, but he calmed her down and told her that he had already noticed the surveillance. The boy turned to the servant and said that there was a good doctor who treated the poor. The servant realized he meant Dr. Li and said that she had recently returned from practice. The boy offered to call her and try to cure his father. The servant said that for her the money was garbage and it would be necessary to negotiate with her personally. Meng Changji nodded and said that she didn't see any sincerity in him, but when the time came he would turn to her himself and ask for as much as he needed. Fu Bo said that Dr. Li's house was on the side of a mountain and he would have to climb 1,000 steps. But the boy didn't care about that. The servant who had been eavesdropping came to the second lady's room and told her everything he had heard. Mrs. Liu was surprised that the guy was willing to go to such lengths to cure his father. Her son offered to go to them first and try to negotiate for money, but his mother forbade him to do so. Mrs. Liu ordered him to get ready and invite Dr. Li. The second son was angry that he would have to climb so high. Mrs. Liu instructed her son that he should be more sincere than Changji, so that they could succeed in inviting Dr. Li. And in the future, the father would be favorable to them. The second son was inspired and said that as long as Daddy loved him more, all the antics they could get away with. Madam smirked wickedly and thought that Meng Changji had given her a chance to make things right. Dr. Li's house was located on the peak of the slope of the Xishan mountain. Li Feilei was a brilliant doctor of Sanshan who treated most often only the poor. Rich people had to shell out thousands buying a hanging pot to get a chance to meet her. Only 3 copies were sold once a month, and only those who managed to buy one could get in for the reception. The rich even pretended to be poor just to get an appointment with her. But the doctor's assistant knew at a glance when she was being tricked. Assistant Li Feilei was about to walk back into her hut when she heard strange sounds from the foot of the mountain. This was the second son of the Meng family. The servants were encouraging the lad in his climb up the mountain, and so he finally took the final step in his not-so-simple climb up the stairs. Meng Changming was very tired, but he was very happy that he could do it faster than his brother. Meng Changji's voice praised his brother and asked him to wipe his sweat first. The young man turned around and was surprised to see him. Didn't he just want to invite the doctor to visit? Meng Changji admitted that he wanted to be sincere with his brother as he sat and drank the water. This made the second son very angry, but the servant tried to calm him down and he even succeeded a little. The second son went to the helper and began to ask for his father's help. He said that he had climbed the mountain on foot to prove the sincerity of his intentions. The assistant gasped and said she never thought he was so sincere. The guy was already glad it had worked out, but she said Dr. Li already had a waiting list and might not even hope to get in to see her now. The second son of the Meng family was very upset by this news. Ben de Miao noticed that they have to do a lot of work to visit her, and the guy said her reputation is impeccable, so they know that and try to sign up. The rich people were upset that Dr. Li's assistant had figured out their plan. One of the guys suggested just buying a hanging pot, But because Dr. Lee doesn't go out the door, there was no such opportunity. Meng Changji thought that because the doctor was often by herself, her disappearance wasn't even noticed. While the second son went to make a second attempt, Jojo noticed that Dr. Lee was not acting like a normal person. Meng Changming bowed before his aides and asked for help, while his servants tried to prove that he was sincere. But the assistant only smiled and said that she had done all she could to make it up to Dr. Lee. The other people on the mountain were whispering that in fact they had already been denied. The second son was very upset. He heard his brother's voice telling him that sincerity alone was not enough in this matter. Meng Changji stood in front of him and said that it was good that he didn't play these games. This statement enraged the second son, and he tried to throw himself at his brother, but the servants held him back. Suddenly, someone's laughter was heard. The man said that at first he didn't believe that Meng Changming had come to the doctor to play games, but now he was delighted. From the whispers of the people on the mountain, it was clear that this man was the eldest son of the Guihai family. The servant denied the rumors that they had been trying to get to the doctor for a long time, explaining that they were not just rich, but the most reputable family. Guihai's eldest son said that he would consider giving charity towards the Meng Seven. This made Changmin angry, but Changji remained calm and even made a joke. Mr. Guihai's servant was furious because of this. But Meng Changji quickly calmed him down when he said that he simply meant that they needed to meet. Meng Changji called Guihai's son a clingy man and suggested that he was in love with Dr. Lee. The servant got very angry, but Mr. Guihai stopped him. He said that in that case, the Meng family would deal with the doctor themselves. The eldest son of the Guihai family walked over to the assistant and asked her to tell him that a representative of the Guangshan government was here. He handed the girl a gold token inscribed Guangshan. The next moment, all the people on the mountain saw the gate open, while the witnesses were wondering why the gate opened. The eldest son of the Guihai family calmly walked inside. Mr. Guihai's servant turned to the Meng sons with a satisfied face and said that if they bowed 3 times on behalf of the Meng family, they would consider helping. The younger son was ready to do it, but since the older one was around, he had to make the decision. Benda Miao and Meng Changji come to realize that he looks serious, and even though he's a bit of a loser, still cares about his father. Meng Changji told his brother to bow to him after he met with Dr. Lee. The second son of the Meng family got angry and shouted that this was no time for jokes. Meng Changji told him that he was about to teach him one more thing, and if he was really sincere, he could succeed. While the guy was walking towards the gate, everyone was actively discussing what he was going to do. Benda Miao also asked how he was going to enter. The guy told her to watch carefully, and as he walked over to the assistant, handed her a bottle of medicine from Dr. Lee. The second son of the Meng family was surprised that his brother actually had Dr. Lee's bottle. He thought that maybe they would be let in, but the others were skeptical. Meng Changji smiled politely and said that he just wanted to return this medicine to the doctor. And then his face took on a look of anger, and he said that this vial of medicine didn't suit him at all. Everyone present on the mountain was shocked. The guy got a lot of points for that. Damon asked Changji not to swear and reminded her that they were here to ask for help. The assistants were frightened and said that if this gentleman wanted to cause a scandal, he had better report everything to the authorities. The guy said he didn't want a trial and just asked that the vial of medicine be returned to Dr. Lee. All the visitors who were waiting their turn to see Dr. Lee were angered by this behavior of Meng Changji. Mr. Guihai's servant told the girls that they could call his master to chase the troublemaker away. The girls looked at each other and decided to call Mr. Guihai after all. Li Feilei sat across from the guy and listened as he promised her to quickly find the person she was trying to find. An assistant walked in holding a vial of Meng Changji. She said that there was a strange man standing there, and he said that the medicine didn't work for him. Mr. Guihai became angry, and Dr. Lee calmly took the vial from the assistant's hands. Mr. Guihai immediately stood up and said that he would solve this problem himself. But did Li Feilei recognize this vial of medicine? Mr. Guihai's servant started bragging that they had a close relationship with the government, so they would quickly eliminate the trouble. Changmin tried to get his brother to apologize, but the boy said that if anyone should apologize, it should be Dr. Lee. At this moment, Mr. Guihai appeared in the doorway. He asked who dared to cause trouble for the genius doctor. His servant immediately told him that it was the eldest son of the Meng family. Mr. Guihai went up to him and said that he would only forgive such rudeness if he bowed his head to him. Changji asked why, if it was Dr. Lee's cottage. He went out to solve problems for her. Guihai said she had better things to do. What caught Benda Miao's attention was the half-point award. Meng Changji said that his remarks made sense, and the second son was shocked, because Dr. Li Feilei herself appeared in the doorway. She looked at the boy and hurried over to him. Witnesses to this were very surprised that Dr. Lee herself came out over the incident. Mr. Guihai tried to convince her to go back inside and said he would handle it, but the doctor just walked right past him. She stopped in front of Meng Changji and looked at him with bated breath. The guy told her he didn't come to cause trouble. He just used this attention-getting method to ask for help for his father. Everyone present was surprised that Dr. Lee really knew this man, and Changmin was happy for his father. Gui Hai's servant tried to say that despite the purpose, what the guy said was unforgivable. The doctor asked him if her medicine was really useless, and Changji laughed and said that he wasn't injured, so for him it was. Gui Hai's servant tried to stir up trouble once more, but the master angrily stopped him and decided to move on back to business. Of course, he didn't expect that the son of the Meng family was familiar with the doctor, but he had already found a topic of conversation with Li Feilei and wasn't going to back down. But when he looked up, he saw that Dr. Li was already leaving with the Meng sons. Li Feilei turned around and asked why Mr. Gui Hai was still here. He awkwardly explained that he wanted to continue the conversation about finding a man. Dr. Li bowed and said that this person was Meng Changji, and he had already been found and Mr. Gui Hai could be free. The Gui Hai family's eldest son was completely shattered when he heard these words from the doctor. The doctor's assistants talked about the first time she'd let someone rich in without a warrant. And then they remembered that when she first came back, she was looking for some rich guy. The second son asked about the relationship between his brother and the brilliant doctor. The boy hesitated and said what he must have with her. Changmin waited impatiently for an answer. Changji replied that if he understood, then fine. But if he didn't, there was no point in explaining. Jojo was sure that Li Feilei was in love with him. The second son thought his brother had seduced the brilliant Dr. Li Feilei. The girl walked into the room with some kind of sheet and asked Meng Changji to take a look at it. It turned out to be a bill for services Dr. Li had rendered him earlier. The guy laughed that she had a good memory. The second son suggested that their relationship was simple, like a patient and a doctor. But Changji refuted that too. Meng Changji asked what about his services as a bodyguard, and the doctor reminded him that since he had only brought her halfway there, the expenses would be repaid halfway. The guy laughed and said she was so sensible that he was at a loss for words. Dr. Li reminded about the additional fee and said that it is waived in addition to the escort agreement. The guy wondered what the extra charge was and what the doctor was talking about. Benda Miao reminded him that for the mountain demon he had demanded a kiss as extra payment. Changmin was very surprised that the doctor owed his brother, and asked why he wouldn't trade it for helping his father. The guy said the doctor could agree without it, and the second son immediately tried it. But Dr. Li said that unless he had orders to hang pots, it was impossible. Second son Meng was disappointed, and Changji asked Dr. Li for the same thing on his own. Li Feilei nodded and said that if it was Mr. Meng's request, she would make an exception. Changmin couldn't understand why he was turned down, and his brother was given an exception if they had the same father. So when Dr. Li had packed her first aid kit, they set off in the wagon to Meng's father's house. Dr. Li sat in the carriage and asked if Mr. Meng and Meng were half-brothers. Changji said he thought she knew about it and decided to punish his brother. But Dr. Li said she was only following the rules. Changji was flattered that she'd made an exception for him, and they chatted sweetly. This flooded the younger brother. Mr. Meng remarked that the treatment would have to be paid for, and Dr. Li said he was absolutely right. The Meng family's second son was also very eager to participate in their conversation. Changji admitted to the demon that he could keep up with Dr. Li's thoughts. At that moment, their wagon suddenly ran over a rock. Everyone inside was shaken violently, and the second son of the Meng family wondered what it was. There was a crowd of bandits standing on the road, and ordered them to get out of the carriage at once. These people were Yin Rulan's subordinates and were going to make money for her. The wagon driver told them that they were attacked by Yin Rulan bandits, and they were surrounded by them. The second son began to panic, for it was the same Yin Rulan. He didn't know what was about to happen. Meng Changji said hello to the bandits and asked why they wouldn't properly greet their son-in-law. All the bandits were confused and couldn't understand why he was calling himself son-in-law. But the Meng family's eldest son kept saying that he and Yin Rulan were lovers. Jojo remarked that if they didn't know who Meng Changji was, they were definitely not Yin Rulan's bandits. The boy was glad that he was able to figure them out so easily. The second son admired his brother's skills and tried to figure out if he was lying or telling the truth. All the bandits hesitated and did not want to risk attacking the lover of Lord Yin Rulan. But their leader was not going to retreat. He looked like one of Gui Hai's men. Hearing their leader's call, all the bandits rushed to attack. But they had no sooner reached the carriage than they were stopped by an intimidating wave of energy. One of the bandits recognized it as the power of the Dao Dao man, and everyone looked up to see who had done it. All of the bandits saw Lord Yin Rulan herself on a small dais. She stood surrounded by her subordinates. She said she had come to find escaped prey, and had found those pretending to be her younger brothers. Benda Miao was surprised that Yin Rulan had come, but unfortunately she could not see the power level of the Lordess again. Meng Changji said that even though they had some relationship, he wouldn't go back to her even if she chased after him. The second son imagined that perhaps brother and Yin Rulan really were together. The guys started to justify that they didn't want to hurt her lover. The leader of the bandits thought that although he wanted to please Mr. Guai, he had no intention of sacrificing his life. Lightning flashed in the Yin Rulan Lord's eyes, and she asked if they hadn't heard what she had said. She jumped off the mountain and screamed that this child was her prey, not her lover, and ordered them to get out of here before she killed them. Meng Changji pretended to play along and admitted that he was her prey. The bandits ran as fast as they could to save their lives. Ben Demiao complimented the guy on his work and told him that now they had earned a whole bunch of points. On top of that, Yin Rulan had finally unleashed her power, and Jojo was able to analyze it. The demon said that her experience was 39 points, and that was the peak of level 3 strength. The Lordess turned to the Meng family's eldest son, accusing him of leaving without permission. The guy decided to settle with Yin Rulan since she was stronger than him in battle despite their levels being the same. He offered her real money, and Yin Rulan said she was from his family for him and didn't get a coin. The guy confirmed it and explained to her why that was the case. It was because Mrs. Liu didn't care about him. He took the second son of the Meng family out of the carriage and said that the lady would give 100% ransom for him. Jojo was shocked at this turn of events. The bags of the Lordess confirmed the words spoken. They said that the father of the Meng family was sick and everything was ruled by Lady Liu, who adored her son. A promising smile appeared on the Yin Rulan Lord's face. Meng Changji expressed his hope that the cooperation would be fruitful. The second son of the Meng family was tied up and being led away by the minions of the Yin Rulan Lord. Lord Yin Rulan admitted that Mr. Meng was a bit of her type. One of the people who had accompanied the Meng brothers began to accuse the elder of insolence, but Li Feilei didn't let the guy finish. She just knocked him out. Meng Changji said that he didn't think Dr. Li was capable of such a thing. She replied that the guy was too noisy. The boy turned away from his brother and started walking to the carriage. He alerted Dr. Li that they were returning. He sat down and ordered him to keep driving the wagon and forget what had just happened. Yin Rulan also started to leave and expressed her intention to cooperate if they met again. It seemed that both Lord Yin Rulan and Meng Changzi were about to separate each to their own side, but in the next moment, both disappeared from their seats and were in the air. The Yin Rulan Lord struck with her sword, and the Meng family's eldest son repelled it with ki energy. Yin Rulan's men realized that the Meng family's eldest son had originally planned to launch a sneak attack on their queen. The people of the Meng family also realized this, because neither side would have been able to repel this attack if they hadn't prepared for it beforehand. The guy who had been knocked out by Li Feilei before suggested that this was Mr. Meng's original plan to save his second son. Yin Rulan said that she didn't expect this from him, but was glad she found someone who understood her silently. The demon said the stealth attack had failed, and the woman was planning the same thing. Meng Changji suggested that she become the Meng family's daughter-in-law if she liked him that much. He said he was ready to get married even today. They continued to fight, and the Lordess noticed that Meng Changji had also reached the 3rd level of strength. She threw another punch and said she liked him even more now. The guy was forcefully thrown to the ground, and the demon prompted him that this woman was using the Baihu technique and had high defense. Jojo said that they had no chance of winning, but the guy disagreed with her. If there is no flaw in a woman, they will create one. The woman rushed forward again, asking that Meng Changji not die. Her red chi hit right on the guy. The Meng family's subordinates watched the fight, and they saw how hard Meng's eldest son was trying. When he was struck, everyone was startled. Dr. Li watched his chi energy carefully. She noticed that it had only weakened a lot. The girl was very nervous and tried her best to convince herself that the guy would be fine. The Lordess stood in front of Meng Changji and pointed her sword at him. She noticed that the guy had exhausted all his energy to defend himself. She praised him for not dying, and said that even though she liked him, she would do to him what she did to the others. And then looking him straight in the eye, she told him he was coming back to her house. Meng Changji decided to inquire as to why such a great woman had decided to capture him. He said he didn't mind being her hostage, but he did mind being an uncomprehending hostage. The Lordess said she would tell him. His stepmother did not want him to return before the selection began and ordered him to be taken prisoner. Beng Demiao was surprised by such a response. After all, if stepmother had instructed Tang Sanbao to kill him back then, why should Yin Rulan capture him alive? The guy agreed that it was weird, but the woman had no reason to lie. A jade bodhi appeared in his hands, which completely restored his chi energy. And he said that he did not intend to be a hostage. His force threw the Yin Rulan Lord into the air. The woman was shocked and didn't understand how this could have happened. After all, just a few seconds ago, he had no strength. But Meng Changji didn't stop and continued to attack the Yin Rulan Lord. In a second, he was behind the woman's back. Yin Rulan wasn't prepared for this. Therefore, Meng Changji was able to knock the sword out of her hand with chi energy. Holding the woman by one hand, he accumulated chi energy in the other, turning his right hand into a weapon and prepared to strike. He put his hand to the woman's neck and told her that unlike the hostages, he liked to win. Yin Rulan didn't expect him to do that. The Lordess's brothers immediately rushed to her aid. The guy noticed this and said that they were indeed very loyal. The woman admitted defeat and asked him not to touch her subordinates. The guy agreed to this on the condition that she does as he says. He leaned down to her ear and whispered his plan to her. Then he asked her if she was willing to accept the terms. The woman looked at the guy with interest and said she was more and more interested in him, and she was willing to accept the terms. Meng Changji let her go, and Lord Yin Rulan ordered his younger brother to be released. Her subordinates were surprised but obeyed. The second son of the Meng family tried to ask his brother what he had said to the woman. Meng Changji replied that he had promised to marry her. The guy believed it, but when he was told it was a joke, got very angry. They finally made it to the Meng family home. Demon noticed that the guy's brother was a good source of points. After the examination, Dr. Lee said that their father was not sick, but poisoned by a very rare poison. His whole skin would harden, and eventually his body would stop functioning. Ben Dameao assumed that his father was poisoned by his stepmother, but the boy doubted it. He thought it was someone who wanted to get rid of the Meng family. The demon was very angry, and the boy promised that he would find a way to find out who it was. But first, he had to save his father. He asked Li Feilei what he needed for the antidote. She replied that they would need a very rare herb that could not be found even outside the gate. The second son volunteered to go outside the gate to persuade the monks to help, but one of his subordinates reminded him that these medicines were not outside the gate. Changji said that if this herb was prescribed in the formula, it must be somewhere to be found. Dr. Lee confirmed his guess and said that it grew in a place where there were many dead soldiers. She said that there were no such places near their city, but Jojo and the boy remembered that they had been to a similar place recently. Dr. Lee was writing a prescription that could prolong the life of the head of the Meng family. At this time, the eldest son of the Meng family decided to meditate to use the points that had accumulated over time. Ben Damiao was glad that they had accumulated as much as 6,666 points. The guy did the math and said that it should be enough for 3 levels. And he was, not sure if he could defeat the Exile Wind. Ben Damiao launched a level up and the points were really only enough for 3. Demon asked how the guy knew how much the glasses would last. He said they increased proportionally. Jojo thought about it, and the system began to improve by 3 levels. The guy meditated and thought that although he wanted to improve everything in one breath, he still had to improve each level separately. He could feel the large amount of ki energy accumulated in his body. His level increased due to such a large accumulation. Changji was surprised that even though he had only increased by 1 level so far, and the difference in strength was already very large, the demon began to explain to him how the 9 levels of chi worked. She said that every 3 levels were 1 stage. Levels 1 through 3 are the basic stage. When a person gathers enough chi energy, he makes a breakthrough. From the 4th to the 6th level, the next stage of transformation begins. At this stage, one must condense and purify one's own ki to tangible and indestructible. The boy thought something similar the priest had done at the funeral, but the demon explained to him that he had only thickened the blood, barely strengthening his body. And Qigong energy is not just an accumulation of energy. A person who develops Qigong, even if it is an accidental blow, as long as it is released, he has tremendous power. The guy got the 4th level of strength and realized that the feeling was completely different compared to the previous 3 levels. Beng Da Miao explained that at the 4th level, blood was already starting to turn into chi energy. He should take a course in chi energy management. But the boy didn't listen to her and put his new powers into practice right away. After the guy threw a punch, he realized that this chi power had a really unfamiliar feeling and contemplated practicing. Damon got angry and asked how the sensation was unfamiliar to him. She thought that since they were bound by this genius predecessor's energy, could it be said that Ben Damiao's energy had been passed on to him? While she was thinking about it, the transition to the 5th level began. The guy asked what would happen next, and the demon explained that when he reached the 6th level, all of his chi would turn into Qigong. The guy could feel the energy quoting throughout his body, and he finally reached the 6th level of strength. Ben Damiao looked surprised at the glow coming from the guy and wondered if it could be. But she didn't have time to finish speaking. A beautiful blue dragon appeared in front of them as if it was coming from Meng Changji, because the guy was all shrouded in a blue glow and the dragon towered behind him. This glow went beyond the house and seemed to reach all the way to the sky. The girl stood on the bow of the flying ship and heard that they would soon reach Sanshan. She thought that this time they should attract good students for the teacher first. But then she thought she sensed a breakthrough in the level of the girl wondered if this power could come from a random practitioner. Then she should definitely try to bring him to the teacher. A man stood in the sky on a flying sword. His name was Meng Xiao. He raised his hand in a spell and many different swords appeared around him. He directed them all to the ground, ordering them to fly down on a city that seemed to be loaded with its usual activities. Suddenly, its inhabitants looked up and saw many swords flying at them. Someone noticed that they looked like Xiang swords, when the swords were already stuck into the ground. The man realized that it was the swords in San that were selecting the contestants for the Xiangming. It turned out that in order to participate, you had to pull a magic sword out of the ground, and everyone who considered himself worthy tried to do it. A man surrounded by flying swords, himself standing on one of the similar ones, announced that the selection for Xiangming was beginning. Guy and the demon were trying to figure out what had happened. Ben de Miao said that she had heard that people with special powers could manifest visible power when they broke through the levels. However, this happens really rarely, and the released energy should awaken special abilities. Jojo and the guy were surprised that they didn't feel any change. Then the guy abruptly froze and hesitated, and the demon asked him what was wrong. The guy said since there was energy released after the enhancement, which is extremely rare, other people could see it. They could get a lot of points. When they checked, it turned out that it wasn't true. Jojo was upset at first, but the guy stroked her and said, "But now they can defeat the Wind of Exile and still become stronger." When Ben de Miao stopped feeling very sad about it, a notification from the system caught their attention. They came closer and read that they would be able to get points from those who don't expect to have that power. And now the system of getting points has been expanded. Jojo wondered that if it was an expansion and improvement of the system, why didn't she feel anything back then? So the guy explained to her the new way of collecting points. Their conversation was interrupted by a shout. Someone called out to Changji and shouted that there was trouble. It was the second son of the Meng family. He said that this time really something happened. Meng Changji asked him to calm down and tell him normally. They were walking toward the exit of the house, and Changmin was telling about the sword that fell from the sky. When they came out of the house, they saw many people around the strange golden ball. The brother said it must be Shangqing. It was explained to him that if he drew his sword, he would pass the selection. So Fubo suggested he try. Now the boy understood why his stepmother had paid Yin Rulan's money specifically for the kidnapping. His stepmother had a plan that included having the monk she hired retrieve the sword and put it in the hands of her second son. That way, it would have passed the selection process. After all, the most important thing is that the sword be withdrawn and it doesn't matter who gets it. But her plan collapsed as Changji turned out to be strong. Beng Damiao agreed with these conclusions of his. While they were talking, they received a notice about the reward, and the demon wondered where it came from. Next to them, the stepmother and the second son of the Meng family were fighting amongst themselves because he had called his brother. Meng Changji decided that if they could collect points even in such an indirect way, it would be much easier to do so now. Fubo's servant said that the elder master had always believed that his son would be able to get into Xiangming. The past owner's memories of the human world, which was divided into 5 parts, came to the guy. The Shanqin Gate was located on the peak of Mount Sangwu, in the northern part of the Wu Xiangming region, and had 8 peaks. Demon asked the guy, doesn't Qingwu Mountain have 27 peaks, and originally the Xiangming Gate wasn't called Shanqing. The guy said it was just the past owner's memories and could be faulty and decided to try to take the test. Meng Changji grasped the hilt of the golden sword and began to pull on it. When something went wrong, and it surprised the eldest son of the Meng family, the sword was heavier than Meng Changji had thought. He held it in his hand, and the hilt seemed to absorb its chi energy. Ben de Miao explained that it was the effects of a spell that tests the abilities of possible disciples. The golden sword was imbued with this spell and could sense the power of whoever held it. 3rd-level people would have little trouble pulling it out. Since the guy was a level 6, it wasn't a problem for him, and he easily pulled the golden sword out of the ground. Julu's boat was flying quietly in the sky above Sanshan City. A large number of people gathered near the map and all watched the success of getting swords. The people on the ship were fighting over who would be the first to take the man who pulled out the immortal sword. The girl said to follow tradition, and he would be taken by whoever sent him to the ship first. The girl said that this year they only wanted the most highly skilled students, and from this day forward, she would practice flying swords all the time. Suddenly, there was a mark on the map that the first highly skilled disciple had pulled a sword out of the ground. Everyone perked up and wanted to get down to the student, but Brother Chi was ahead of them all. He was already next to this guy who was Gui Hai's son. The girl tried to figure out how he had managed to get to his destination so quickly. Meanwhile, on the streets of the city, a fiery phoenix appeared in the sky. The phantom of the Gui Hai family's eldest son. The celestial praised the lad and said that if he could pass the 2nd stage of the relic test, they would become brothers. Mr. Gui Hai was ready to join the Luoji. Feng Qi's attention was caught by a new phantom that appeared in the sky beside them. It was bigger than Mr. Gui Hai's phoenix. The phantom had 2 heads. One was a snake and the other belonged to a turtle. Feng Qi saw that there was some other candidate cooler than the one he had already found this year. The girls were standing in front of Ji's house, and were discussing about the young master. Not only was he more handsome than Master Gi Hai, but he was also stronger. Young Master Ji watched the phantom he had released while passing the test. In Meng Manor, the family's second son and a servant were trying to figure out what was going on. They saw first a phantom phoenix, and then a turtle appear in the sky. The demon noticed that Changji wasn't the only one in the city with talent, but the guy didn't think it was strange that there were many talents in the world. Besides, they wouldn't be as good as him anyway. And in the next moment, Mr. Meng easily pulled the sword out of the ground. A huge golden sword phantom appeared in the sky. It caught the attention of everyone in the city. The people on the ship in the sky also saw Mr. Meng's phantom, and they noticed that with the appearance of the divine sword, the other two phantoms instantly disappeared as if the sword had scared them away. No one could remember this ever happening before. When the guy turned to his little sister to tell her that they needed to go find that student faster, the girl was no longer around. People were discussing the appearance of a sword phantom over the Meng family's house. They were arguing whether it was a monk or the eldest son of the Meng family, and they were trying to figure out whether it meant that Meng Changji was stronger than the members of the Ji and Gui Hai families. The demon looked at the phantom's sword and couldn't believe the guy had actually done it. And then a sudden epiphany came to her. After all, just now, the phantom sword above the Meng house that Changji had made had been seen by the entire city. He shocked everyone, which means they scored a lot of points, and with such ease. The phantom disappeared, and the boy wondered why his appearance was different this time. The demon explained that he was affected by the spell, Warrior Spirit Recognizes the Source. Meng Changji felt something approaching him from above with great speed. The boy and the demon looked up at the sky and saw something that looked like a monk flying a sword flying at them. As they looked closer, they realized that the monk on the flying sword must look a little different. There was an eerie rumbling sound, and it caught the attention of everyone present in the Meng house. Everyone rushed over to see if Mr. Meng was okay. They asked why the sword was flying at him if he had won the trial. When the haze cleared, they saw Changji's silhouette still standing. The girl who had fallen from the sky was hugging him. She said that she had caught the boy and now she could have him for herself. The guy said that although the fortune teller predicted him luck with the opposite sex, but that the girls themselves flew into his arms, he did not expect. The girl bounced off the guy and started waving her arms. She said he had it all wrong. The conversation was interrupted by another voice, who also wanted to make a deal with Meng Changji to cooperate. It was the guy on the flying ball. He introduced himself as Jun Wu. He said his peak was Mei Yin, and expressed his desire to invite the guy to their peak. Suddenly there was a loud shout, asking to wait a moment longer, which caught the attention of all present. It was the same man who had invited a member of the Gui Hai family. He promised that after joining the Luoji, they would become brothers. Feng Qi had to dodge the swords flying at him. A great many celestials appeared, and they were all arguing over whose peak would get Meng Changji. The girl blocked the guy with her and said that he had already chosen Daonian, and the brothers must abide by the rules. But instead, the brothers reminded her that a person has the right to choose the summit until the moment they board the ship of one of them. The guy turned to Ben de Miao and started saying that popularity was annoying. Demon was worried about them fighting over him. The guy looked at them and reassured Jojo. He said that as long as he was here, they wouldn't fight. The girl said she wouldn't give the guy up, and she was willing to fight for him. But the brothers didn't look scared. The quarrel was stopped by Meng Changji's voice, ordering them to stop. He said all three were too verbose and didn't even ask him which peak he wanted to join. The three looked at him shocked and tried to figure out what he was even talking about. The Meng family's eldest son moved a chair toward him with an unwavering face. He sat down and said that he would be the one to choose where to join, and they should fight for him, not choose instead of him. He invited them to demonstrate their abilities so that he could choose. With this statement, he frightened everyone present in the Meng house. Some of the Celestials thought it was arrogant, but Jun Wu said that this person could afford such behavior. Feng Qi laughed and said that no one had ever entered Xiangming with such a high level before. Therefore, the idea of adjusting the rules had a place. Everyone accepted the rules, only the girl was confused by this turn of events. Changmin tried to bring his mother to her senses, and our protagonist earned a lot of points, while Jojo was rejoicing at the points she had received. Meng Changji said that the Celestials could begin their performance. Eventually, each of the Celestials began to introduce the characteristics and benefits of their summit. Demon asked how a guy could stay so calm when meeting people from Xiangming. Changji said that they act like normal people. The first to start was Zhongwu. He said that Mei Yin was controlled by the chief of the three peak elders who mastered alchemy. Furthermore, the master is only familiar with cultivating various heavenly herbs. Their peak grows the finest rare herbs. Every disciple of the Mei Yin peak is given free elixirs and all herbs for practice. Changji asked for the next representative. Jojo really liked the first peak. The second representative appeared in front of them with a loud bang. He smiled broadly and said that Luoga's most important feature was strength. None of the people present were impressed with this statement from Feng Qi. The guy said that their master is second elder Shang-Ching, and he's second only to the leader. Anyone can become a great fighter next to him. But more importantly, the wizard had siligomania. Therefore, they had a large amount of treasures, many scrolls, and magical weapons. The disciples of the summit were provided with customized magic items. Benda Miao liked this summit as well. The guy asked the last person to speak up and present their top. The girl was a little confused. Jungwoo began to speak for her. He said that Elder Daonian was always indifferent to the improvement of her disciples. Feng Qi confirmed that at that peak, the disciples only engaged in self-study. Everyone called the elder useless. The girl from Mount Dongyang became very angry when she heard her elder being insulted. So after a few more angry remarks, she drew her sword and ordered everyone to stop insulting her master. But before a fight could break out, they were stopped by Changji's voice. He said that even though the summit girl hadn't introduced her herself, he already understood everything from the other's words. The Daonian Peak girl was very upset and angry because the disciples she had caught would go to others. Brother Qi was certain that magical artifacts were an important attribute, and he would definitely choose his peak. And Jungwoo had no doubt that alchemy and herbs were useful for practicing, so he would choose Mei Yin. Meng Changji thanked all the representatives and said he was choosing Daonian. Such an unexpected turn of events shocked the Daonian Peak girl. Junwoo was also shocked, and the other Peak disciples thought he was mocking them. Feng Qi said that if he glimpsed a beauty, then they have them on the peaks as well. Ben Demiao decided that the guy was joking around to earn a lot of points. After all, there were a lot of people here who didn't expect such a decision. Fubo asked the gentleman to think better, for his path to improvement depended on it. But the lad said he had already made up his mind. When Jojo heard this, she was shocked. She couldn't believe that the guy had really chosen the Daonian Peak. The girl questioned if he had really decided to join them, and Changji confirmed his words. Ben Demiao couldn't understand why, out of alchemy and magical artifacts, he had chosen the most goofy top. The guy reminded her that she was a demon, and the Xiangming Gate people are exterminating demons, and if they find her, they will destroy her. Therefore, to avoid such an outcome, he chose Daonian. Jojo admitted that she had completely forgotten that she was a demon. The other tops accepted his choice and left the guy. The Daonian Peak girl said that she hoped the Lord would not regret the choice he had made. She gave him a badge that said Daonian, and said he was her little brother now. The girl said that tomorrow they were going to the flying ship that was on the outskirts of Xianshan City. She asked him not to be late. Meng Changji told Beng Damiao that elixirs and magic artifacts are just things, and Jojo is the only one who is trustworthy. Demon was beyond thrilled that the guy appreciated her so much. At a little distance from all the others stood a small house. The guy held onto the hilt of his sword and said that the selection would only last until tomorrow. The boy was sure he could become an apprentice, when suddenly a naked woman sounded behind him asking if he could hold a sword. The boy was frightened and asked who she was, but the strange woman ordered him to be quiet. She ordered him to be quiet and said they would finally get past the magic circle and into the city. She reached out her hand to the hilt of the sword the boy was already holding. She said that the monks must have discovered her sister, and she couldn't complete the task. On the second day after Shang-Ching lowered the magic sword, the people who passed the first selection arrived early as instructed. After a beep from Shang-Chin, which will be heard throughout the city, the second elimination round will open the entrance to pass. Beng Damiao noticed that in addition to the relatives who had come to see her off, there were almost 100 other people. His brother Changmin came up to the boy and asked him what he had said to Uncle Fu before he left that he looked so surprised. The boy remembered what he had said to him then, but replied that it was no big deal, just a little experiment. Jojo enjoyed the points she got from a distance. Servant Fu stood in the middle of the courtyard of the Meng house and tried to understand why the master had said to tell the second lady that the Celestials had killed the Meng brothers. This information caused the second lady to faint. When she came to her senses, the servant said that the older one had failed and the younger one was able to pass the selection. Hearing this, the second lady fainted again, and only when she came to her senses a second time was the servant able to tell her the truth. Fu Bo didn't understand why the second lady needed to come to her senses and faint so many times in a row. After such excitement, Mrs. Liu repented and asked to surrender. She promised that she would listen to his orders and asked him not to joke like that again. Ben Demiao was glad that they had completed the purpose of the mission so quickly. What remained was to cure the head and bring back the family business. After they finish this mission, they will be able to unlock the Harmony Immortal mission. A voice sounded in the minds of everyone participating in the second round of the selection process. It congratulated them on passing the first round. Meng Changming wondered what this voice and head technique was, but Big Brother said that the announcement of the rules was about to begin and one should listen. Cheng Wuji listened to the instructions and wished him good luck in the selection. Afterward, the guy said that he would definitely restore the Ji family's position. The voice began to talk about Yi Ji's world, that Yiji is not dependent on this world. Its nature and content is different. It is full of possibilities and contains rare treasures, birds, and beasts. He said that with the revival of the aura, magical vestiges appeared. They open every time the Earth Spirit is active. Each opening lasts 10 days, and the time of the next opening should be calculated based on the aura around the ruins. The concentration of aura in the ruins will gradually increase over time. It will peak on the last day, and the creatures in the ruins will become stronger. If you enter the ruins on the first day, you can clear everything within 12 hours. In addition, Shang-Qing's disciples had entered the ruins in advance and created 4 safe zones. So if someone wants to opt out, they can follow the signs and go to a safe area. Also, everyone was given a jade pendant in case of emergency. If you break it, disciples from the peaks will come and help you deal with the danger. Everyone who passed the first selection held a jade pendant in their hands and realized that it was a very useful thing. After reading the rules, the selection of the disciples who would pass the test began. Meng Changji realized that they would go through the ruins after the other disciples. Ben Damiao said that this aura was familiar to her, and remembered that it was because of her that the mountain demon had gotten that strong form. Meng Changji also remembered that mountain demon in the body of a red-haired gibbon. Jojo was doing the calculation. She snapped her fingers and said that they would need 10 days to unlock the Harmony Immortal mission. But the guy said they could do it in 3 days. Ben Damiao was very surprised, and asked how the guy was going to bring back all the Meng family's businesses in 3 days. Meng Changji said that the person who took them away would come here himself. Mr. Guihai came over and said hello to the eldest son of the Meng family. Changji thanked Mr. Guihai for taking care of his younger brother and temporarily looking after the Meng family's businesses. The second son shouted and couldn't understand why his brother was thanking this man. After all, he had lied to him and forced him to sign the agreement that made the Meng family lose half of their property. The second son was hit on the head to keep him from negotiating, and Changji said it's time to take back possession. To this, Guihai only laughed. He told Meng Changji not to lose in the ruins or the entire city would know about his reputation. The guy wasn't going to back down and suggested making a bet since Mr. Guihai was feeling so confident. They were betting that Mr. Meng would be able to qualify for the entire Meng family property. Guihai said he has most of the Meng family's holdings and is not happy with his bid. Meng Changji held out a medicine bottle and said that it was made by Dr. Li himself. He also said that this bottle has her kiss on it. The guy shook the bottle in front of Mr. Guihai and asked if it was enough. Guihai blushed, coughed, and said that if Mr. Meng was so willing to give him all the property, it was fine with him. Demon asked where he got the bottle from, and with a kiss. And the guy told her that it was just a regular medicine, and he had made it all up. Thus, Guihai and Changji made a bet and even signed their names. Guihai said that a deal is worth more than money, and said that he could definitely use this medicine from Dr. Li. The crowd of students had finally gathered. The girl considered the crowd and tried to find the one in it. The monk who was hired by the second lady was about to meditate to energize himself when he heard strange discussions behind his back. He listened as the young men behind him described something thick, big, long. The monk did not understand how it applied to him. The second son was told that the sword phantom was made by a Taoist. The guy who was told this came to the conclusion that it was the monk who was great, not Meng Changji. The second son confirmed the speculation and called Changji a mediocrity. He offered the boy a golden ticket and asked him to prevent Meng Changji from passing the test. The guy agreed, and Meng Changming promised to give double the reward for fulfillment. Mr. Meng watched as another guy fell for his brother's stories. Demon didn't understand why they were giving them money, and the guy explained to her that it's called an investment. He told her to imagine that she was planting money, and then she would harvest a huge crop. Ben Damiao asked how much money they would get when they harvested the crops. The boy replied that it depended on how much his brother planted. At that moment, the gates of the ruins opened, and the participants headed out to explore them. As they entered the ruins, the guy realized they had moved to the outskirts, and they needed to get to the center. The demon noticed that the ruins were quite large, and it would be difficult for them to find Bingu Cow alone. Just at this moment, one of the bribe guys appeared. He introduced himself as Lin Yaotian, and said that she wouldn't let him pass the test. Ben Damiao and Meng Changji were also happy to see him. The guy was shocked and couldn't understand why he was so strong. The lad had lost to Changji, and now heard that he would owe him 10 million liang of silver, and would also be his servant in the ruins. The boy agreed to go through the ruins. Meng Changji showed him a drawing of the herb they were looking for, and told him that if he found it, the debt would be cancelled. No sooner had they finished their conversation than a new trio of those wishing to prevent the gentleman from qualifying appeared. When Mr. Meng refused to surrender, they threatened him that they would now deal with him in a bad way. But they met the same fate as the first guy, and Changji kept getting points. All three of them sat on their knees in front of Mr. Meng and listened to the same terms as the first guy. Then Changji got tired of repeating himself, so he turned it over to Lin, and the demon watched to see what the fruits of their investment looked like. The first guy shouted at the three that they were now Mr. Meng's servants in these ruins. He showed them the drawing and said that if they found Bingu Chao, their debt would be cancelled. Lini was surprised that he felt good doing the job and let the three guys sign the contract. The boys began to guess that they had been tricked by the Meng brothers. Meanwhile, the ruins in Xianshan City had already been passed. This year it was very easy to pick them out. In past times you had to look hard to find the ruins. The girl thanked the guy for saving her from the skeletons. He said it was his. After all, if someone died in the selection process, it would be very bad. The girl asked the guy what it was, and he answered that it was just an altar created to isolate the core of the ruins and seal the threat. The girl lowered her eyes and thought the aura seemed very familiar. The monks flew their swords in the sky, and one of them said that if he calculated everything correctly, in 2 days the gate of the forbidden immortal emperor would be the weakest. Ming Xiao was ordered to lead disciples to guard the central area of the ruins. One of the monks created a seal in the air, calling it the Blossom of Life. Meng Changji and Beng Dameao passed further and further into the depths, but Bingu Chao was still nowhere to be found. The guy offered to have some fun sometime while they searched for weed. And the demon was too scared of the skeletons. She said she couldn't imagine how Guy was going to have fun with anyone here. And Changji felt someone approaching them. Changji saw Mr. Gui Hai and said that he wouldn't even have to look for him. After all, he had already come to him himself. The guy realized he could collect a lot of points from this guy. Mr. Gui Hai had noticed that the further you went in, the stronger the monsters were. It was good that he had thought of it beforehand. Suddenly, Gui Hai heard his name being called out. To his surprise, it was Meng Changji's voice. He was standing on the ledge of a mountain. He offered to destroy his jade pendant so he could win. Mr. Gui Hai was surprised that the guy had gone this far, but he didn't refuse the offer. At this moment, an entire army appeared behind him. He said that these people were all of the 3rd level of strength. Changji, who was at the peak of the 3rd level, would not be able to defeat them. Benda Meow was angry that they were going to attack in a mob, but the guy was amused that Gui Hai was completely weakened. He said that the lack of chi was a big problem, and asked if he should consult Dr. Li. Changji asked how he could help. Gui Hai got angry and said that if he thought he could find his faults, he was too naive. Meng Changji showed boredom with his entire appearance and said that they would have to try their best to deal with him. Gui Hai ordered the guys to attack and shouted that if they did, his jade pendant would be destroyed. All the members of the Gui Hai family were preparing for victory and celebrating the Meng family's disappearance. Changji said he would only need one thing to handle them all at once, but all the fighters still rushed at him to attack him from all sides. But the guy wasn't impressed or scared by it at all. He concentrated all the energy in his right hand and then released it. The release of chi energy threw all the attackers a great distance away from him. Even Mr. Gui Hai, who was standing farthest away, was blown away by the gust of this force. Mr. Meng Changji's blue lightning bolts could be seen everywhere around him. The Gui Hai family's eldest son couldn't understand how this happened. He was kneeling in one of the ditches created by this ki power surge. Mr. Meng told the guy not to worry about his subordinates. He used the skill so that he wouldn't kill anyone. You have to get points, and this can only be done from live people. Mr. Gui Hai began to rise from his knees and asked what tricks Meng Changji had used. The one turned around on him and said that the whole secret was to hit with a ki release. Naming this skill doesn't have it, but if he wanted to, he could name it. The realization came to Gui Hai-san that it was an ordinary punch. Gui Hai's eldest son fell to his knees in front of the Meng family's son, and at that moment Ben Damiao noticed a flower in one of the holes that Changji had created. They came closer and saw that it was the Bingu Cao they were looking for. They realized that this herb was to be found underground. Meng Changji noticed a heavy aura approaching and wondered if people would be able to touch this herb. The demon explained that this herb absorbed a lot of chi energy, and its properties depended on the quality of the energy. Therefore, even the weakest herb could not be plucked by an ordinary person. This flower energized the man who died in the ruins. Bang Dameao said that as long as Changji was concentrated enough, disrupting Bingu Chao wouldn't be a problem. As the guy tore the grass, there was a loud clap of thunder and lightning appeared in the sky. Immediately after that, a huge skeleton dressed in armor came out of nowhere. The demon asked why this skeleton suddenly came to life and raised its level. The Celestials from Daonian Peak saw something strange in the sky. The blonde man explained that it was because of the unstable aura of the ruins. The girl asked what would happen now, and the guy told her that passing the ruins would become more difficult and the participant was out of luck. He turned to the girl to tell her not to even think about secretly protecting her brother-to-be. But the girl wasn't there again. It was as if she had disappeared. The Daonian Peak girl flew her sword to protect her possible younger brother. Meng Changji noticed that his energy couldn't directly crush the monster. The demon noticed that it was a very high-quality herb. Mr. Gui Hai noticed that Meng Changji was attacked by a strange creature unable to move. One guy from his team offered to take advantage of his immobility and win. But Mr. Guihai didn't like this suggestion. He said that Mr. Meng was very merciful, and he was an ungrateful man. Guihai rushed to the skeleton and shouted that he would repay Meng Changji's debt and save him. Meng Changji saw Mr. Guihai's intention, smirked, and made his move. He struck an ordinary blow with enhanced concentration at the skeleton's arm. Benda Miao praised him for being smart, plus they got points again. The demon noticed that the harvested herb no longer had a dark aura and could be eaten by anyone. Changji turned around and asked Guihai what he had said, but the man began to refuse and said it was not important. Meng Changji hugged him and said that Mr. Guihai had turned out to be very moral. He asked him if he wanted to do him a favor, and Guihai agreed. As the monsters in the ruins became much stronger, the number of people who were eliminated increased dramatically. Mr. Guihai stood in front of the second son of the Meng family and talked about their wager, and handed Bingu Chao over. Meng Changming was very happy that his father would be saved. And Fubo asked Guihai how Mr. Meng was doing. There was a whole group of skeletons coming at the team of contestants, and they weren't sure they could handle them. They were saved by the appearance of Mr. G, who dealt with all the skeletons in an instant and asked if they were all right. The group thanked him for the rescue, and they all said they would never forget his kindness. Mr. G smiled softly and said that they should all help each other. He thought that this trial was a great opportunity to buy people's hearts. Suddenly, one guy in the group noticed something strange and pointed over there. The people present shifted their gaze. There was a huge skeleton in armor and carrying a huge sword. The guys were shocked that this skeleton had great armor. They thought he was a general. Then they saw that there was someone there, and these people joined together to fight. Someone said that the best way to face fear is to overcome it. A group of guys recognized that voice. It belonged to Meng Changji. It was carried by Lin Yaotian, as the guy rode on this chair and fanned himself. A group of people rushed to attack the huge skeleton with shouts for Mr. Changji and for Mr. Guihai. Mr. G was surprised that Changji had managed to subdue so many people before him. Demon marveled that Jinji had just pretended to be handicapped and had gotten so many points. Besides, he didn't even have to fight. He received a notification that the secret mission had been completed, and the unlocking of the Harmony Immortal mission was starting. Meng Changji and Beng Damiao were upset that the unlock required a download. The huge skeleton was defeated, but something began to happen. The guys were whispering amongst themselves and trying to figure out what the change was. Meng Changji suddenly felt anxious, and Lin Yaotian and Jojo looked up in shock. A red huge eye began to appear in the sky. The feeling was familiar to Ben Damiao. Could it really be the demon of the sky? All the people were looking in shock at the strange object that suddenly appeared in the sky. Meng Changji said that the original owner of this body had never heard of such a demon. Jojo explained that it existed in the distant ancient times. The demon said they have no blood, no emotions, no flesh, no feelings. They destroy everything in sight, and the monks of God are no match for them. Back then, countless heroes of the human race had sacrificed themselves in battles against the demon race. Finally, the demons were completely banished from this world. The guy thought that the Shangqing elders were of a level higher than the heavenly monks, and if they united, they should be able to handle the demons of the heavens. Jojo said that the demons of the heavens were not the ones to provoke. The rest of the people couldn't understand what was happening. Meng Changji remembered that ordinary people don't know who the demons of the heavens are. The demon told him not to worry, since demons wouldn't be able to appear here. But the boy was still worried. After all, they were in a ruin where things were not so simple. Ben Damiao explained that, although it was a ruin, it was connected to the world, and should theoretically reject the demons of heaven. Suddenly an eye in the sky opened wide and said that the border crossing had begun. He said that the gate was opening. Ben Damiao said that even though he would open the portal, he still couldn't enter the ruins. A teleporter opened on the ground, and the eye in the sky said that this time, thanks to strategic forethought, the gate allows you to pass through the border. A demon appeared from the teleporter, and Ben Damiao couldn't understand how this was possible, and why a heavenly demon could break through to the human world. The heaven demon slowly opened his eyes. They were bright red in color. A whole wave of destructive power formed around him, and the air around him was filled with a demonic aura. People began to be swept in different directions, and no one could understand what was happening, or who the person was. Mr. G felt the influence of the demonic aura, and realized that a high-ranked demon had appeared. Meng Changji asked Jojo why the others were staring so intently, and she explained that they were shocked by the power of the demon's chi energy. Ben Damiao boasted that she is a holy demon who is related to a guy, and so the guy won't be shocked. Suddenly, the guy felt depressed, and Jojo was shocked. The guy said that since he still didn't know the origin and purpose of this demon, the best choice was to hide in the normal world and avoid trouble. Ben Damiao remembered that there were several factions of demons, and this one could be her enemy. The demon said that it looked like he was on time and there were a lot of people here. He had worked hard to find the best place. The demon reached forward with his hand, and a strange red energy made all the people around him freeze in place. People found themselves trapped inside the orbs. They tried to break the jade pendant, but it didn't react in any way. Meng Changji also found himself in a displacement ball. Jojo said that she hated this kind of magic. The demon heard someone shouting to him and ordering him to stop. He shifted his gaze to the ground to see who dared tell him what to do. It was the Celestial from the Daonian Peak. She said that the demon wouldn't dare touch anyone as long as she was here. The Heaven Demon swept past the girl at high speed, delivering a blow. She stepped back from the sword and began to fall, after which she found herself in a ball like all the other people. Meng Changji noticed that he had put the girl down with just one punch and wondered if it was even possible to stop him. Benda Miao said that she didn't even have a chance, and the Heaven Demon sank to the floor. He looked at the spot where he was standing and said that the aura was coming from here, which meant that this was the gateway to another world. Feng Qi asked if the ruins had been taken over by monsters, and Junwu said that when this guy appeared, all the protective magic collapsed. The demon looked at the arriving monks as he towered over them. He said that there wasn't even a high-level elder among them, and they might not even try to interfere with him. The demon was determined to take one thing away, and he concentrated his chi energy on his fingertips. Then he let it all out towards the monks, who watched in silence. The monks shouted that the airflow was too strong. They were all blown away and no one could resist. Meng Changji noticed that these monks even all together couldn't withstand the attack. So maybe the girl from the Daonian Peak wasn't so bad. Benda Miao asked what they should do next, and the guy said that the demon was planning to use the people for something, so their lives for now are not threatened. Meng Changji thought that there were special conditions for entering the core of the ruins. If that was the case, then they had the opportunity to realize his plan. Feng Qi stood on his feet after this attack and noticed that Zhongwu did so as well. The third monk used his sword-raising technique and tried attacking the demon with his swords. The Sky Demon asked if they really wanted to save the people he had gathered. He said it was pretty spry, but weak. Zhongwu and Feng Qi started shouting to him from behind to remember that they hadn't attacked yet. Feng Qi used his Dharma image technique. The Heaven Demon looked at it and didn't seem impressed. Feng Qi shouted at Ming Xiao to save people while he and Zhongwu detained the Heaven Demon. The Sky Demon looked at the humans' attempts with disdain in his gaze and called them worms. But then, he noticed that Jun Wu's technique was actually able to break through the barrier and absorb his physical strength. The monk of Mount Mei Yin asked him not to underestimate the human race. Because I'm as big a beast as he is, they'll be able to handle me. The demon dispelled the technique of Junwu, who was tied up, with a single hand movement. Now it was Feng Qi's turn to show the power of his technique, and he struck the heavenly demon with all his might. As they fought, Ming Xiao released one person after another. He was about to use another technique, but the guy couldn't finish it. Ming Xiao heard the demon's voice saying that these three are really talented, so he uses black magic. Ming Xiao and his swords felt as if they were chained together. The demon said that he had a case, and he didn't like to do meaningless things. Iron chains of black magic hovered everywhere around the Heaven Demon. Junwu and Feng Qi were also chained up. The demon said that he didn't want to repeat what he said because it was stupid. Bengda Miao resented that this guy really knew the secret magic of the holy demon that had been passed down from generation to generation. The guy wondered if he was a holy demon too. But Jojo said that there can only be one holy demon. This demon is most likely his descendant. Meng Changji asked why. If the demon had made so much noise, the jungling beast guarding the ruin lands hadn't come out. Jojo explained that it was because the beast wouldn't be able to counter this guy with anything. The Sky Demon touched the gate and a bunch of symbols appeared on it. The boy noticed that it looked like he was deciphering something. Meng Changji noticed that there was something wrong with Jojo. It was as if she was hypnotized and was staring at the gate. She had read that the Immortal Emperor's gates were open to those who showed their bravery in return. Benda Miao turned at the guy and said that she felt very uncomfortable when he looked at her like that. The heavenly demon finished deciphering and said that the human race should be presented as the key. He turned to all the people he had gathered and said he would use them as keys. Meng Changji noticed that what the demon read and what Jojo read were very different. The Sky Demon freed one man from the trap and used dark energy to make him walk towards the gate. Then he made him put his hands against the wall, which was the gate. It was as if a tremendous electric shock had gone through the boy. He screamed, and then he fell to the ground. He was still breathing, but his injuries were too serious to live. The demon was disappointed that he didn't last even a second, and realized how good it was that he had plenty of people to use. The Celestials shouted and asked to use them instead of ordinary people. But the demon told them they were no longer human and wouldn't fit his keys. He'll just keep opening the door until she's had enough people. The people in the traps were screaming with hopelessness and asking for someone to come to their aid. Bengda Miao noticed that there was a powerful seal on the gate and even Meng Changji might not be able to handle it. The guy asked why the demon still hadn't discovered her, and Jojo said that she only has a soul, so no one notices her. They looked at the fact that there was a full 10% left to unlock the new skill, Harmony, Immortal. People kept dying near the gate. Changji noticed that the demon didn't move as he summoned more people. The guy wondered that if the skill name was Immortal, it might have something to do with repairing or strengthening his body. He realized that he was going to have to take a risk. The Sky Demon was going to use more than one person at a time to speed up the process of opening the gate. Meng Changji shouted to the Heavenly Demon that he was too bold. He said that the rebirth of the Celestial Emperor was here and must not be allowed to continue to run amok. People looked back at Meng Changji in shock, questioning what kind of Celestial Emperor this was. Celestials Feng Qi and Zhang Wu also didn't understand what the rebirth of the Celestial Emperor was all about. Jojo was angry at the incoming points, asking the system to load faster. 91% was loaded. The Heaven Demon asked what he was talking about and pointed out that there wasn't a trace of strong Qi energy in this guy's body. The guy said the phrase he said about the Emperor was a load of crap, but it's useless to use weaklings to open the door. The Demon of Heaven needs to find the strongest who will give results. Mr. G thought that Meng Changji had lost his mind. He thought the guy was trying to divert the demon's attention to him. Lin Yaotian decided that Meng Changji was trying to stand up for them, and cried, happy that he was following the right person. Meng Changji went on to say that there was a rare person here now who was able to summon a phantom in the city. The Heaven Demon thought about his words and recognized that they definitely made sense. Meng Changji said that everyone had already guessed who he was talking about. That person was Wujin Gui Hai, the eldest son of the Hai family. The people in the traps didn't understand what was going on or why the guy was talking about Wujin Gui Hai. Feng Qi shouted at the guy, "How dare this person from the Meng family treat his brother like that?" Junwu tried to calm him down. The Heavenly Demon flew closer to the trap that Meng Changji himself was in. And the Demon of Heaven asked the guy where he could find this Wujin Gui Hai then. Meng Changji admitted that this person was already outside the ruins. And for that reason, if he wanted him, he would have to go outside the ruins. The Sky Demon doubted his words. He asked if the strange man was deceiving him. The guy mocked him. He said that even though the Demon of the Sky was strong, his mental abilities left a lot to be desired. The Harmony Immortal mission has finally been unlocked. Turns out it will expend points to heal wounds and works up to return from the dead. Meng Changji kneaded his hands and wondered what he should do now with the Demon of the Heavens. The Heavenly Demon said that it was pointless, for no matter how Meng Changji fought, it would all be in vain. Meng Changji broke the trap he was in and concentrated his Qi energy in his palms. The guy rushed to attack the Heaven Demon, but the guy only looked at him disdainfully, as if the guy was just an ant. Meng Changji attacked with all the strength he had, additionally pointing at the demon swords. But the Heavenly Demon only raised his right hand and said that it was too weak. In the next instant, the eldest son of the Meng Changji family was already flying downwards. He didn't even realize how it happened. All he had to do was group himself in flight and hope for a soft landing, which didn't follow, because he fell with a deafening force straight to the ground and raised a huge column of dust. Jojo was panicking because over 1,000 recovery points had been used, but the effect was too small to restore her health completely. The guy asked Jojo to take his time to heal completely. Beng Dameao asked why he didn't want to be fully healed. Meng Changji explained that the words he was about to say in such a state had to sound more convincing to the others. The Sky Demon was surprised that the mortal was still alive after such a blow. But he noticed that now he must realize that all his actions were completely meaningless. The guy got up off the floor, his whole body shaking, and he yelled that it would never be pointless. He looked straight at the Demon of the Heavens and said that a great man once said that the hymn of humanity is the hymn of courage. Courage is the essence of everything. Those in the ruins looked at Meng Changji in shock, and he continued to say that bravery was a talent that did not only exist in a select few. Courage is not an acquired skill that requires hard work. He said it was in the heart, and it was in every person in the world. The people in the traps listened to his speech with bated breath. Meng Changji gathered his strength, and as if he was preparing for a fight. He said again, bravely. Then he straightened up confidently and declared that she was forcing her to protect expensive things, even if it was dangerous. They will fight to the end. Therefore, it would never be meaningless. The people in the traps lit up when they heard such a speech. They realized that they could not just give up. People began to inspire each other. After all, if even those mortals who had not yet built the foundation did not surrender, how could those who had a higher level surrender? The Heavenly Demon looked down at them and said that the ants had found the strength to break free and could still resist. He used his power again and sealed the men back into the traps. He said that no matter how many ants are gathered, they are still just ants. The seal on the gate began to activate around Meng Changji. The guy told Jojo that this was what he had planned. But then he felt a terrible pain. Jojo noticed that the seal was attacking Meng Changji's soul, completely ignoring Beng Dameao. The people who were trapped again were watching all of this and were very worried about Master Changji. The Heaven Demon looked at it and said that he didn't think that with such an injury, the guy would be able to activate the door seal, but his strength wasn't enough. Meng Changji was going to take advantage of the fact that the Heaven Demon had misunderstood the situation. Jojo said that it was too dangerous, and she was afraid that he wouldn't be able to withstand such a strong attack on his soul. A multitude of lightning bolts appeared around again. The Heavenly Demon noticed that this key was equal in strength to the spirit of so many people, and he wondered if he could break the seal on the door. The lightning bolts were getting bigger and they were getting stronger. The guy was running out of energy and called out to the worried Jojo. With a smile on his lips, he asked her to wake him up if he fell asleep, and asked his demon not to worry. After all, he had the skill Harmony, Immortal. Jojo called out to Meng Changji with tears in her eyes to the departing Chunky. At that moment she felt something strange. Her whole body felt as if it was electrified, and in the next moment, she had already transformed into her image of a beautiful girl. She stood behind his back and put her arm around his shoulders. She called his name. Demon hugged him as hard as she could, like she was trying to protect him from all this pain. A golden lightning bolt bounced off the gate, and everything around it was blinded by a bright golden flash from the explosion. The guy was covered in blood and abrasions. He looked at Jojo, who was still hugging his shoulders. She looked fondly at Meng Changji and pulled away from him slightly. After that, the demon turned back into a cat. The guy didn't immediately realize what had happened. Beng Damiao examined Meng Changji and was glad that he was fine. The guy was surprised that Jojo hadn't noticed anything. Their attention was caught as someone yelled the door opened. Meng Changji looked at the gate that opened and realized that Jojo was right, and only a worthy person would be able to enter. The Sky Demon was pleased when he saw the door open. He decided it was a success and was about to enter, but a strange energy began to emanate from the tunnel that was in the gate. Feng Qi noticed that it was the aura that was able to remove the shackles of black magic. Zhang Wu assumed that there was a legendary spirit inside. The Demon of Heaven turned to the gate. He asked if it was really the voice of a spirit. A huge animal came out of the gate, which was called the Sacred Animal of 1,000 Feathers. This animal attacked the Demon of the Heavens. The demon said that the thing inside belonged to his clan, and he dared not stop it. The moment a lion with wings that could fight on par with a heavenly demon jumped out of the door, the traps disappeared. Young Wu started pointing all the people out of the ruins, and to get as many people out of the ruins as possible. And Feng Qi ordered the healthy ones to carry the wounded away and do so as quickly as possible. The Sky Demon fought off the beast's attack, and said that letting the human race in through the door was extremely ridiculous. Now the heavenly demon was completely serious, and released even more of his overwhelming demonic aura. It descended upon all the people below, and the Celestials noticed that the demon's aura was now much stronger than before. The people were completely pinned to the ground, and it felt as if all their bones were about to break. Beng Damiao asked why the guy didn't walk through the door. Meng Changji said that a rash act could ruin everything. The winged lion and the heavenly demon fought in the air using all their strength. Suddenly, a strong wind appeared and started to pick up people. Junwu asked them not to resist, and explained that it was a wind of exile that would throw everyone out of the ruins. While the humans were being carried out of the ruins, a terrible battle of equals was taking place in the sky. Meng Changji realized that the beast really wouldn't let people inside. Benda Miao didn't want to be carried away by this wind again. The guy gathered his strength and ordered Jojo to move now. They jumped, dodging the wind of banishment, and the demon was very happy about it. When they ended up on the ground near the gate, they got points and didn't understand why. Meng Changji turned his head and saw something he hadn't expected. There stood a girl who had earlier tried to find someone among the humans. They met each other's eyes. The girl moved him to another place. Meng Changji could sense a demonic aura, but it wasn't the aura of a saint demon. Was there really another demon here? The girl spoke that the Immortality Emperor is inside, and she is taking physical form. She said that since the beast didn't have the strength to stop this boy, now was the right time. A beautiful girl with blue eyes and purple hair stood in front of the guy. She asked him if he had any business with her. The boy said he didn't understand the case his sister was talking about, even though he couldn't feel the demonic aura from her. She was studying a weirder aura. The girl began to quickly approach the Meng family's eldest son. The girl touched the guy's cheek and said that if he could open the doors, there was power in him, and the Emperor's seal could also be broken by him. Meng Changji realized that he couldn't control the chi energy after touching her. Benda Miao wondered why this technique was so familiar to her. The girl didn't understand why he could ignore the demonic shock, and the guy told her that everything was because he was the reincarnation of the immortal emperor. The girl got upset and said their time was coming to an end. She pulled away from him and told him that the guy was talking too much, and even though she liked the sound of his voice, now wasn't the time. The girl asked the guy to follow him because Emperor Guju's danger was not something he could handle on his own. The guy could move again, and told Jojo that they would follow the girl for now. and then they would see according to the situation. They were walking through a place called Emperor Guju's residence, but it was more like a battlefield. The girl said that the Emperor's former residence was never a fairy cave, and here is only a fragment of the big liar's memory. The guy asked Jojo what the memory fragment was. She told him that the Emperor's level was high, and with one memory fragment, he could shatter reality. Ben Damiao said that these ruins weren't originally like this, and it was the Emperor fragment that filled everything with bones and evil spirits. The girl reached some strange wall. She stopped in front of it and said they were there. Ben Damiao said that she could sense a system fragment nearby, and Meng Changji noticed that there was a thick fog ahead. They were standing next to some huge building. The boy assumed it was a monument. He asked the girl if it was a stone monument. It must have been erected to honor something. But then why isn't there a word on it? The girl replied that it happened because the big liar knew he didn't have a face to write down the facts. Meng Changji noticed that the girl kept calling the emperor big and a liar, and asked if she had been with this emperor. The girl turned to him and said that being too curious could be dangerous. Jojo said that if the emperor lived thousands of years ago and this girl knew him, then she's super old. But the guy remarked that it wasn't her place to complain about her age. The girl created a shimmering ball between her hands and said, "Dark magic, Yellow Emperor's treatise on the inner." She put this ball on the ground and a huge seal appeared, and the girl commanded it to open. A passage appeared and a staircase led downwards. Jojo noticed that the reaction had become stronger, and the system fragment was definitely below. The girl held out her hand to him and told him that if he didn't want to get lost, let him always stay by her side. The guy was ready to go after her, even though he had a chance to escape downstairs. But he didn't know if he'd get a fragment of the system then. Meanwhile, outside the gate, the battle between the winged diva and the heaven demon continued. The beast stood in front of the demon and told him that he didn't think there would be such a strong opponent in this era. The sky demon said their clan had never forgotten the hatred of being banished to the void by the gods, and this beast chose to become a guardian. Shameful. The beast told him that he had heard something about him as well, but that was no reason to join forces with the heavenly demons. The beast said that the essence of the demons of heaven is chaos, deception, and destruction, nothing more. The boy turned away from the beast, covered his eyes, and then said that only demons could save their race. The girl and Meng Changji were as if they were in some kind of dungeon. She led him down the steps deeper and deeper. Benda Miao said she didn't like such a dark atmosphere, and the guy told her she was a demon. They stood at a crossroads opposite 3 different dark caves. The girl closed her eyes and uttered, "Mountain wind, gloomy lake," the 3rd line of the divine word. And then she pointed to one of the passageways and said they needed to go downstairs. Meng Changji noticed that all the directions they follow are chosen in a strange way. Beng Da Miao said that she chooses it with spells. The guy said that the road didn't look dangerous, and Jojo said that other than the large concentration of aura here, she didn't notice anything. Meng Changji told Beng Da Miao that they should try it, and the demon interjected that they needed to try. In the next moment, Meng Changji threw the bone off the steps. It turned into 1,000 shards, and Jojo noticed that they really shouldn't run. The girl turned to the guy and asked what his problem was. Meng Changji told her that he tripped over the skull and it rolled down. The girl winked at the guy and told him he'd better walk beside her. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to help if the limiter went off. The guy asked if all his sister wanted was for him to walk beside her. The girl kept walking ahead and said it was good that he realized that. Meng Changji rejoiced and asked her what she wanted to say. Then he jumped up and flew toward the girl. He got behind her back, winked at her and told her his sister did it for her brother. As a reward, he got a point. The girl turned at him in surprise and asked what he was doing. She couldn't understand how he was ignoring her barrier. The guy kept snuggling up to the girl and said it was so dangerous here, so he would snuggle tighter. The demon defeated the huge skeleton general with a single movement of his hand. The demon was annoyed. These ants are very weak, but they are constantly being reborn, and this is very annoying. The Eye of the Sky said that if he failed, he would be sent back for thousands of years. The demon was annoyed and said that people just liked stupid tricks. The demon stopped and said he would listen to the advice of the heavenly demons. He wanted to leave this place. Then a huge red eye appeared behind the demon. They went downstairs and the guy thought that Jojo was right about the key to remove the charms. Guy was glad the doors downstairs weren't as strong as the ones outside. Ben DeMeo said they were just testing for human identity. After the guy touched the doors, they started to open. A sculpture towered in front of them, and in the center was a strange ball. The girl looked at it and said it was really here. Meng Changji asked what was the big deal about this gem, and the demon said that she felt like it was a system fragment. They realized it was what they needed, but noticed that the girl had already grabbed it first. As the girl held the stone in her hand, a strong energy began to appear around her. She held it in her hands, and everything around her was orange, and the girl couldn't believe it. She screamed that the big liar had hidden him from her. Everything around her was blurring. She shouted a curse and seemed to vaporize into thin air. Ben Damiao explained that this teleportation spell was set on a stone. If you touch it, it will teleport you to another place. Jojo said that as long as it doesn't go off, it can't be detected. And the guy realized that whoever set the trap wants to play. The boy asked how the spell could be bypassed or broken. Ben Damiao said she knew a way, but all spells could only be used after the foundation was built. Suddenly, the guy felt something strange, and he couldn't believe that it was really what he thought it was. Jojo felt the demon's aura and panicked, but the guy calmed her down when he told her that they didn't have to fight him. Changji said that their companion was not weak, but still trapped. Jojo wondered what he was going to do. The demon was walking through the dungeon when the Red Eyes said that the defenses were getting stronger and soon they might fail. But the holy demon didn't heed the warning and told him to just be told where to go next. I said they should go straight ahead and there would be the demon clan's jewel, but advised them to be careful. When they reached the end of the hallway, they saw that the door to the right room was open, but they didn't know who was inside. The demon couldn't believe that someone else had managed to overtake him and had already taken the first steps. The man flew into the room and decided it didn't matter, since no one but him could get the precious item. The demon landed on the floor and heard another man's voice saying he was expecting another guest. The man asked how the man had gotten in here, and Changji calmly sat with his eyes closed and held the jewel in his hands. The demon didn't get an answer and decided it didn't matter, but decided that the man deserved punishment for taking the demon's item. The demon sent a demonic shock towards Changji, but the guy remained seated and remained calm. Jojlu laughed happily and said that such an attack could harm an ordinary person, but not Changji. The guy continued to sit with his eyes closed and asked the demon what he was seeing and if Changji was human. The demon saw that the demonic shock didn't work on this man and began to prepare for another attack. Several seals appeared around him, and a sword made of demonic energy formed in his hand. This was his secret magic. Changji sat next to the precious item with protective charms around him. Jojo shouted that the demon was approaching. Guy calmed her down and told her that the enchantments left by the Emperor should be unbreakable. But he himself was worried. The protective seal worked, and the demon's attack turned into a light purple substance. But even though the defense worked, the black magic continued to try to do damage for a while longer. The boy noticed that despite the protection of the stone, the heat around it was enough to fry the man, so it hurt. But Changji was glad that the system was stable, and Jojo immediately restored him, even though she complained about the wasted points. The demon said that even 1,000 feathers couldn't resist this skill, but despite the uniqueness of the man, he would be destroyed. Changji said that he was only human in the eyes of the demon, but in reality he was not human and the mystery of the sky was just a misty cloud to him. The guy told the demon that he was an immortal emperor, a ray of light bringing justice to the world. The man wondered if the guy could indeed be a projection of the emperor, but questioned why he looked like a human. Changji said that he didn't care about his appearance, so his image in the eyes of the demon is the devil in his heart. The demon looked down at the floor and wondered if that boy had managed to hurt him so badly. Benda Mea was thrilled when she realized the guy's plan, and Changji was telling the demon that his heart knew everything. Changji thought the demon was stupid though strong, while Jojo thought she was stronger and smarter than their opponent. Guy recalled that Jojo wanted to remove the spell from the stone, but it turned out that they were now short on points. Changji looked at the demon who was determined to destroy him anyway and asked if he would be okay as free labor. The guy said he was here to wait for those destined to accept his legacy, and asked if the demon was ready for the test. The holy demon calmed down when he realized that the emperor wasn't going to interfere with him, and agreed to the test. Changji confirmed that he wasn't going to stop the demon and the precious item would be in his possession after the test. The demon bowed, and Bendamiao started thinking about what they could do if someone used black magic. Jojo said that the Bagwamizi rune spell that grows into Liang Yizawa and is hard to see. These spells were of a high level. Changji looked at the precious item and thought about Jojo's words. Bendamiao explained that after a certain level, a person could read spells, and the higher the level, the stronger they were. And to put it simply, only Shangming level monks, having learned immortality through training, can master Bagwamizi. And to master the Liang Yizawa spell, one must understand the law of heaven and earth. And only those who have reached the level of an immortal have the ability to comprehend the higher realm. Changji realized that he couldn't break the spell at this stage, and Jojo said that it could be passed by a worthy heir. The holy demon stood up and asked the emperor what the test was that he had to pass. Bendamiao panicked and said she wasn't ready yet, but Changji said he would take his own time. Meng Changji looked at the saint demon with a serious face and asked why he thought the test hadn't started yet. The holy demon was a little surprised when he heard this question, and afterward he pondered at the immortal emperor's words. The man realized he needed to think and wait a bit, and just sat down and waited. Bendamiao couldn't believe that such a strange and easy question was enough to distract the demon. The guy reminded him that he was considered an emperor, and the question could also be a test, so the demon was willing to wait. A small amount of time had passed when Jojo told Changji that she was already ready. Ben Damiao asked if the guy wanted the demon to sit a little longer before he started, and the guy confirmed it. Later, Changji became serious again and asked the holy demon how many years he had waited. The demon opened his eyes when he heard the question and began to ponder his answer. Not much time had passed since he sat down, but should he answer that 10,000 years is like a blink of an eye? But the demon was worried that it was the wrong answer. Changji then began to applaud and told the demon that this was the correct answer and he had passed the first test. The holy demon was greatly surprised and did not understand how he could answer correctly. He said that he had not even uttered a word. Changji looked at him carefully and said that he saw no point in worrying if the demon had already answered in the shower. The holy demon realized that the emperor was reading his mind and thought that this was truly a great power, and he was like a child in front of him. The system alerted that they had earned 1 point. Ben Damiao couldn't believe it was so little, but the boy said it wasn't over yet. Ben Damiao said that the musty air stagnates and the dark aura turns into pure air and spreads into the sky. Jojo said to release the demonic power to break the spell, so Changji asked to show the demonic power. The holy demon didn't understand why he had to show his power, but decided that he would try to pass the strange test anyway. The demon saint stood up and concentrated on unleashing as much demonic power as quickly as possible. Ben Damiao was sure that a holy demon was perfect for breaking the spell on a precious item. The second step requires the aura to subside, and the guy asked if the demon's heart was restless. The holy demon noticed that his power was too great and his heart was not calm, so his power raged. The demon decided to subdue his power. After that, the air needed to be cleared, and Changji asked if the holy demon's heart was raging or the wind. Jojo said that the last step was to identify the aura and transform it into power. So Changji said he understood and asked if the aura had become his power, or if the power had become his aura. The room began to collapse, rocks and various wooden beams falling to the floor with a loud rumble. At this moment, the room began to change reality, and an alien aura and sign appeared on the floor. Ben Damiao was glad that they would soon remove the spell and get the fragment, and at that moment, Changji felt a strange aura. The holy demon also felt a foreign aura appear in the room, and soon he saw who it belonged to. Under the ceiling, the holy demon saw another demon with huge paws and scales and long claws. The elevation where Changji was sitting next to the demon's precious item collapsed, and they began to fall. And then the girl who had escorted Changji to the dungeon appeared in the room. She told him not to forget about her. The girl towered from the ceiling and looked down on the holy demon. She had to cover her breasts. Also, the girl was covering her thighs as her clothes were ripped due to her past image. The holy demon looked at the girl who appeared with a bit of tension and irritation. The girl thought about how this demon had broken through the defenses and somehow kept Changji alive. The holy demon thought that he was facing another part of the phantom ordeal, though the aura was stronger. Ben Damiao asked what they should do when the girl returned, and Changji wondered if she could handle the demon. Jojo said that the girl was the demon ancestor of a certain clan, and the guy was wondering what attracted them to the treasure. The system detected the fragment and asked whether to start the merge and warned that the ruin would close afterward. So Joe agreed to improve. The guy heard that they would be returned to their world later and was worried about the demons, but Jojo said that everyone would be returned to their world. Changji decided that the treasury was a fragment of the system, and the stone was just a carrier, and Ben Damiao thought it was marvelous. Jojo said the merger would take a little time and asked what the guy would do. Changji decided he wasn't going to pretend anymore. Ben Damiao said she didn't know what it was related to, but she already felt sorry for those demons. Changji said hello to the girl and shouted that he had followed her instructions and had finally waited. The girl shifted her confused gaze to Changji and couldn't understand what the guy was suddenly talking about. The holy demon was angry when he realized that he had been deceived all along, and they were actually in on it. The system got a point, and Changji said he'd give the relic if it helped stop the holy demon. The holy demon became furious. He shouted and asked how this man had dared to deceive him. The demon's demonic aura around the demon was getting bigger and bigger. The holy demon shouted that it would destroy Changji, and after that, the technique of 1,000 hands that consisted of dark magic was directed at the guy. Jojo shouted that they wouldn't survive this attack, and the guy told her not to be nervous. After saying those words, a demon appeared in front of them, protecting the guy from the deadly attack. She folded her arms and began to concentrate her spiritual power to create a counterattack technique. After that, a huge magical celestial dragon appeared in front of them, and Changji says that they came to their rescue. Ben Damiao was surprised that the girl decided to save Changji, and the guy said he was holding her treasure and it was in her best interest. The girl turned to the guy and asked how he was able to touch the stone. This confirmed that the girl didn't know if the spell was broken, and will continue to protect them. The demon saint asked why the girl was stopping him if she was also a demon. The girl had to turn away from the guy without waiting for a response as the holy demon attacked again. She had to defend herself, and was disgruntled that she couldn't ask the man because of such a strong attack. Benda Miao said that the merger is almost complete, and Changji told her that it's a great time for them. The system announced that the download was complete, and Meng Changji prepared to move to his world. The guy stood up from his seat and threw a relic belonging to an immortal emperor towards the girl. The holy demon and the girl were continuing their confrontation when the girl heard Changji scream and saw a flying ball. The holy demon looked around and realized that the ruins around them were beginning to crumble. The girl held the orb in her hands and thought about the fact that even though she had the relic, but the inside of the stone was empty. Benda Miao realized that the guy had made the demons fight amongst themselves so that in their worlds they wouldn't think of him. The holy demon threw himself at the girl while the ruins were still intact and screamed at her to give him the treasure. And the girl hovered in the air and held the balloon in her hand right in front of her and didn't try to run away. At that moment, Changji was in his world and realized that this scene was the last thing he had seen in the ruins. Benda Miao felt a surge of strength as the system unlocked harmony, ruthless and harmony, faceless. And Changji sat on the column and was happy to have earned 2 extra points at once with such ease. Harmony. The faceless one can render any chosen object invisible, but continuously wastes points. Changji said that this skill was useful and perfect for someone as honest and reserved as him. The guy asked what the point of the second skill was, but Jojo said she didn't know, and it looked like the system was broken. Changji asked Jojo was not paying attention, and the demon said that the system would most likely return to normal soon. The boy decided it was time to go downstairs, but when he looked down, he noticed something strange. Benda Miao asked what was wrong, and then the guy said that people looked like they had just gotten out of the ruins. And the demon decided that time was very different in the dimensions. Changji decided that now was a great time to try out the skill of facelessness and jumped off the column. The guy landed behind the crowd of people. The ground beneath him cracked, but no one turned around. Benda Miao was satisfied that none of the people even suspected that Changji was around. Fu Bo and Changmin searched through the crowd of people for Changji, and the invisible guy figured out that his touches go unnoticed. But Benda Miao said that touching for some reason dramatically increases the consumption of points. Changji assumed it was because it took more energy to maintain invisibility, and decided it was reasonable. They then decided that the experiment could be considered over and turned off the use of the skill. Benda Miao disabled the skill, and Changji appeared behind his brother and greeted him loudly. Changmin got really scared and screamed and added a point. He asked the guy when he had time to show up and sneak in unnoticed. Feng Qi said that it was dangerous, but it was over thanks to the spirit. But Junwoo was sure it was too early to relax. Ming Xiao asked the people not to worry and said that they had already given a sign, and the elder appeared in person. Changmin said that he had already given the herb to Dr. Li, and perhaps when they returned, father would be fine. Changji stroked his brother's head and thought that he had done a good job, and thanks to him, he had unlocked the immortal skill in time. The second son of the Meng family is greatly embarrassed and yells for Changji not to stroke his head. But Changji is distracted. A seal appears in the sky. Soon the parameter analysis was finished and the movement begins. Benda Miao panicked when she realized that a high-level monk was walking towards them. But the guy asked her not to worry, and said that they could use the faceless skill on her as well, and Jojo realized that she could no longer be afraid. Benda Miao tried to make an intimidating face. She talked about how great she was. But she didn't have time to finish because she felt the pain, and Changji said that she was the most intimidating faceless one. From the seal in the sky, a bright beam of blue light appeared aimed at the ground, and the movement was complete. The beam disappeared, and a girl who was the law enforcement elder Wei Jiaohua appeared in front of the people. Meng Changji noticed that there was no aura emanating from the girl, unlike the holy demon. The demon relaxed when the monk didn't run a scan. Ming Xiao bowed to the teacher and began to say that he was very ashamed of himself for not being able to hold the gate. The teacher said that the holy demon was too strong an opponent, and Ming Xiao's best decision was to retreat and call the teacher. The bottom of the girl's palm lit up with a bright blue light, and she realized that the ruins were completely enclosed. Feng Qi got worried and asked if a holy demon had come out of them. Zhongwu was worried that the demon was already here and hid to attack. The girl concentrated, and the light in her hand began to burn brighter. The girl began to scan the area. Changji asked Benda Miao to use the skill, but the demon had already done so, and Changmin was trying to figure out what the light was. The girl finished scanning everyone present, and her gaze focused on the unusual aura. The elder jumped up and flew up into the sky. She was surrounded by a bright blue light like a comet. When the girl flew high enough, she stopped and started looking at people to find the source of the aura. She thought she sensed the presence of a holy demon, but the scan revealed nothing. Benda Miao exhaled a sigh of relief and admitted that she was a little scared, and Changji said that too many points were going away. Jojo saw that the glasses were about to run out and decided she was finished, and Changji said he would find a way to earn points. The girl realized that the holy demon was clearly here, but the skill didn't detect anything, and the girl thought he was hiding. The elder knew she had no choice, so she decided to use another spell. A huge sword appeared behind her, and a barrier appeared around the people. Some guy started shouting that the visibility of what was happening outside had disappeared. The walls around the people get higher and higher, and she finds herself enclosed in a confined space behind a barrier. Feng Qi said that everything looked familiar and asked what the elder was doing. Zhongwu explained that it was a technique to prevent escape. Ming Xiao was watching his teacher, and he was very curious about what the girl was going to do. The elder thought that the result of Tianyuan's divination was that the demon was somewhere around here, although the scan didn't yield anything. But she suspected that it was here. The people trapped in the barrier began to panic, screaming and crying. They were worried about the demon between them. Changmin asks if the holy demon is so terrible since everyone is crying. And Changji says that everything turned out fine. Bendamea was embarrassed and a little angry. She yelled at the guy not to joke around at a time like this. The elder ordered the disciples to use the sword heart skill, asking Lingen to check the connection with the demon. Ming Xiao asks everyone to line up to take the test and assures them that if the demon is here, the elder will find it. Young Wu is about to check on the first person when he hears someone yelling and asking him to wait. Changji said that there was indeed a demon among them. Bendamea started yelling for the guy to stop. All the people were shocked when they heard such a statement from the guy and looked at him fearfully. Changji got the points, and the elder was surprised at such a quick result. Then she said that the demon hadn't even touched him. Changji started to convince Auntie that he was possessed by a demon, and Bendamea beat him to stop. Ming Xiao frowned slightly at the possession statement. Feng Qi didn't understand what the guy was doing, and Junwu tried not to laugh at the way the guy addressed the elder. With this statement, Changji earned a huge amount of points, and Bendamea realized that this was the guy's plan. The elder went down to the guy and asked if Meng Changji was really possessed by a demon. The guy said that was his assumption, since he had been attacked by a demon, and that one might have left some of the power in him. Changji revealed that he had accidentally opened the gate, and after that, all of his injuries instantly healed. Bendamea was angry that the guy gave her credit to another demon, but the guy asked her not to worry. Ming Xiao walked over to the teacher, bowed, and said that all of Meng Changji's words were true. The elder listened to her disciple and folded her hands into a seal. A yellow light appeared between her palms. The elder opened her eyes, and they began to burn very brightly with a yellow light, and she looked at Changji. Feng Qi asked why the eyes lit up, and Zhongwu irritably explained to him that it was called eye-opening and demons couldn't hide from it. The girl scrutinized the guy, and Bendamea was very afraid. The guy said that as long as she used the faceless man, it was fine. The elder said that his body was tainted by the demon, but the demonic power was very well hidden, and without eyes, it couldn't be seen. Bendamea was horrified and decided that this was her end. Changji remained calm and asked the same of Jojo. A sword appeared in the girl's hands, and she told him not to panic because she could crush the force and not hurt him. Lightning began to appear in the sky, and the boys were startled to lift their heads up to see the sudden change in the weather. Junwu hoped that this was a skill he wouldn't have to explain to Feng Qi, and the guy was angry because everyone knew this technique. The elder was preparing to use the heavenly technique to destroy the demonic power with a single strike. Changji became worried when he realized that he had demonic power in his body, and the demon was sure she was finished. The elder's eyes began to glow even brighter, and the light from her eyes illuminated her entire face. The elder's preparation was successful, and she channeled her energy into Meng Changji, and the sword flew towards the guy. Bendamea said that the elder was trying to kill her, but the guy was sure that the girl would help them. Meng Changji's body began to glow with a blue light, and a strong wind rose around him. After that, a blue dragon head appeared in front of the guy. It was the same as the demon girl in the dungeon. The dragon spirit completely left the guy's body and dissolved into the air above him. Changji rose into the air during this. The elder finished and said that she had gathered all the demonic power from Changji, and he could worry no more. Bendamea began to examine herself and realized she was fine. Changji reminded Jojo that she had no demon energy left. Demon admitted she was nervous and forgot, but she was curious about the other power. It turned out that the woman had done it to them. Bendamea was angry at the demon, and the system gave them a reward. Chunji noticed that the rate of absorption of points had slowed down. The elder said that although she had destroyed the power, the guy shouldn't have been careless. The girl asked Ming Xiao to keep watching and check everything thoroughly. The boy bowed. Feng Qi was surprised that such a strong skill was unable to test everyone at once, and Junwu told the guy that he didn't understand anything about magic. Bendamea asked if she needed to use a skill to divert attention, and the boy wondered. Then he looked at the girl and thanked her for saving him, calling her auntie, shocking all the people again. Feng Qi and Junwu couldn't believe that the guy was actually interacting with the elder like this. With this action of his, the guy was able to get a huge amount of points on the system's score. The elder looked at the joyful boy carefully while the others continued to wait for her reaction. But to the guy's surprise, the elder didn't scold Changji, just turned away from him with a small smile. One of the guys asked Ming Xiao if the master was angry, and the guy said that judging from the expression on her face, she admires Changji. The boy asked why, and Ming Xiao explained that he recognized this person, and the master probably did the same. The guy didn't understand how they could talk about honor right now, but he didn't say anything to Ming Xiao. Benda Miao noticed that they earned more points than they spent, and Changji said that as long as these cultivators are around, they can don't worry. At this time, in the forbidden area of the sea east of Dongshan, a gate was located on the seabed. The demon girl appeared beside them and realized she had gone back. It seemed to her that the laws to isolate demons had begun to permeate the ruins. A goldfish swam up to the girl and asked her sister if she was hurt. The sea people were worried about the girl. She said the fish could take it easy and showed the treasure. The fish noticed that the treasure of the first demons looked ordinary, and the demon girl said they had to go back because they had a lot left to do and couldn't be idle. She thought she should investigate the treasure, and since the guy still had the mark on him, she could get even with him later. But just at that moment, the mark dissipated, and the girl was surprised that the guy was able to detect it so quickly. After a thorough inspection and confirmation of the absence of hostile forces, all present were allowed to leave. Since passing the test had been interrupted, it was decided to discuss further action, and time was needed. Fubo drove the horses, and the Meng family's carriage was on its way home to see his father during this time. Changji said that the document couldn't be recovered, and Jojo complained that the immortal skill could recover everything except this. Meng Changming noticed the strange paper in his brother's hands and asked what it was in his hands. Changji looked at his brother and asked him if he wanted to get rich. He shook a piece of paper in front of him. Benda Mio asked if she could sell the item for money to Meng Changmin, and the guy was interested in the offer. Changmin asked if it was the paper of the great teachings that the guy had found while he was in the ruins. The Meng family's youngest son agreed to buy it at a low price and repay it when he made a lot of money. The Meng family's carriage was passing by a hill, and from its top, a girl was watching it. That girl was Dr. Li Feili. She stood on the edge of the hill and watched the stranger's wagon carefully. Her assistant asked if the girl had come to meet Changji, but the doctor said there was no point in meeting him. Dr. Li Feili turned away from the carriage and said they had to go. And the assistant thought the girl never does anything without a reason. Then in a short time, the Meng family's carriage arrived at the house and drove through the main gate. The horses stopped when the carriage was in the courtyard of the main family's estate and the boys hit home. Changmin said he took the herb to the doctor and she began to finalize the antidote, and Chanusi called the girl a genius. Suddenly they heard a familiar voice calling their names and looked in the direction of the sound. Their father stood outside, his wife held the man's hand, and they walked towards the boys. Changmin ran to his dad and hugged him. He shouted that he was very happy that Dad was finally awake. Benda Mao said she could have cured him herself. Oh, Changji was sure they needed Dr. Li's skills. Changji asked why the girl was nowhere to be found, and Changmin said that she left right after she created the medicine and her father woke up. Before leaving, Li Feilkai left Changji a new vial of medicine. Changji thought he could give her glasses now. Many people gathered around the tables to celebrate Master Meng's awakening and the return of the eldest son. After the banquet, Changji went to the roof, and they were glad they could get a lot of points for telling the story of the ruins. Now that Changji's father was healthy, he wanted to get busy finding whoever had tried to kill him. Tang Sunbao said he was provoked by his stepmother, so they had to face off and try the elixir the doctor gave. Changmin boasted to his mother about the piece of paper and said that Changji had sold it to him very cheaply and now he would make money. The day after the celebration, it was fairly quiet and peaceful in the main family home. But back at the house, the stepmother was worried that Changji would decide to settle the score. Changmin told his mom not to worry. Father asked Fubo why Changji had asked them to gather early in the morning, but the servant didn't know the reason for the gathering either. Changji and his aides and Tang Sanbao soon appeared. He said that father should try the case. His father looked at the guests carefully and asked Changji what case he wanted him to judge. Changji said his wife tried to kill him by hiring an assassin and conspiring to seize the Meng family's property. Changmin was worried and asked what his brother was talking about, and how his mother could have threatened his life. His father asked if the boy could have been mistaken, because his stepmother was not that kind of person at all. Changji said he didn't want to believe it either, but he was shown the evidence and had to believe it. The stepmother panicked and yelled that Changji was talking nonsense, and there could be no proof because she wasn't guilty. Changji asked to bring Tang Sanbao closer and asked if the woman would recognize him. The stepmother said that this man was in charge of collecting tax from the country villages, and the boy said he was ordered by her to commit a murder. The stepmother turned to her husband and started saying she didn't do it and was just being set up. Tang Sanbao said that for her eldest son's head, she promised that his business would go up and gave him a jade Bodhi. Changji said that the Meng family had struggled to obtain the jade Bodhi, and the woman had given it away so easily as a reward. The man looked at the jade body in his son's hand that really belonged to them. Fubo told about the thief. But the man did not listen to the servant to the end and asked him to be quiet. He was very angry with his wife. So he got up from his seat and asked Jojing if she could add anything to the situation. Changmin ran up to his trembling mother and asked his father not to get angry. He said it was a misunderstanding. Then the boy rushed to Changji with tears in his eyes and shouted for his older brother to help him. He fell to his knees in front of him and begged him not to blame his mom. The guy swore on his life that she had nothing to do with it. However, Changji looked down on his younger brother. Benda Miao said that the kid was really a naive kid. Jojing shouted and ordered her son to get up from his knees, and Changming continued to sob. The woman said that she didn't expect Meng Changji to be so mean. But Changming is innocent, and if he is released, she will explain everything. Changji said he always makes his feelings clear, and if Changmin is innocent, he won't touch him. Jojing cried and said that if the guy didn't keep his promise, she would turn into a spirit and finish him off. The woman opened the vial and said she was sorry she wouldn't get to see the heights of Changmin. The guy asked what she was doing. Jojing asked the guy to take care of himself and tearfully started drinking the substance from the vial. The guys couldn't believe the boss had killed his stepmother. Sanbao was pleased that the woman had gotten her hands on him. Changji said he wanted that and ordered his subordinates to keep their mouths shut. That day, only 4 people knew what had happened at Meng Manor, and at night Sanbao went somewhere. The man looked back at every turn and made sure he wasn't being tailed. Changji noticed that Sanbao was very cautious, and Jojo was excited about their new regime. Suddenly, the system started alerting for new glasses, and Ben Damiao was surprised. Changji had told her that they were getting them from Changmin. At this time in the Meng family's estate, Jojing came to her senses and asked her son to stop crying. Changmin looked at his mother, who looked quite healthy, in shock, and wondered if she was alive. Jojing said that she drank the fake pill that Changji made. The man asked his wife to eat some soup. Changmin realized that everyone but him knew it wasn't real, but no one had warned him. Jojing said that they knew Changmin's acting skills would be lacking, and decided to keep silent about it. Changmin grabbed his head and shouted that Changji had led him again and added a lot of points to the system with these actions. Sanbao kneeled in front of the man and said that the target had been killed and he had successfully sowed enmity in the Meng family. The tiger-masked man praised Sanbao and said that the heavenly evil clan would not forget his merits. Changji was a little embarrassed and noticed the man's very strange expression of gratitude. Benda Miao was watching and said she was very happy that they finally had an enemy. Benda Miao had never heard of the heavenly evil clan, but this was the kind of information the past owner of the body had. Rumors said that aside from the Gate of Heavenly Beings, there was a group of sects that practiced special evil methods. These sects were insane, and said that a heavenly evil clan had once slaughtered an entire city under a foreign banner. Benda Miao was angry, and said that there was no point in killing mortals in a confrontation with the Celestial clan. Sanbao reminded him that he had been promised a reward, and the man said that if he would be faithful to the end, let him come closer. Sanbao stood up and Changji moved closer, leaving the jade Bodhi just in case. The masked man smiled as Tang Sanbao joyfully walked towards him to receive his reward. However, instead of a reward, a powerful energy began to gather in the tiger-masked man's hand. And the man punched Tang Sanbao in his bare stomach, injuring him very badly. In addition to that, Tang Sanbao was flung very far into the air and his body flew helplessly to the side. Tang Sanbao landed and hit his back hard against the wall. He asked out of his last strength why they had done this to him. The man in the tiger mask repeated that Sanbao should keep secrets for him forever. Meng Changji nodded and confirmed that only the dead forever keep secrets and everyone knows that. The man in the tiger mask heard the strange male voice and turned around in panic and asked who Changji was. Changji said that a loyal person could keep secrets and stay alive, and the man tried to figure out how Changji could have failed to notice. They earned a point, and the demon noticed that the man knew the other meaning of the words, and the guy said that the basics were known by everyone. The man laughed and said that he hadn't intended to kill him himself, but now it was Changji's own fault for falling for him. Meng Changji was ready to engage and began to create blades around him. The man said he didn't expect the guy's mastery of chi energy, but it was obvious that Changji wasn't skillful at controlling it. Changji winked at him and asked who said he was going to attack with chi energy. Zhou called the man naive. Another blade flew past the tiger-masked man as he tried to make sense of the stranger's words. The man turned around to follow the trajectory of the blade and what he saw shocked him. Changji had written a message in the sky with incredible chi control that the master of heavenly evil was here. Though the man didn't understand how the guy could have such good control, he decided that Changji wasn't combat capable. Meng Changji asked if he signaled to the people from the Gate of the Celestials, the man would just run away. Cultivators saw the inscription and flew into swords with questions as to how a member of the heavenly evil had infiltrated the city. Changji began to tell the man to run before it was too late, as the swords were still in the air. But the man in the tiger mask threw himself into the attack and shouted that he had enough time even if he killed Changji first. Changji used the faceless skill and walked away from the blow, and the man stared into the void and couldn't understand how this was possible. The cultivators flew to the specified location and were trying to see a member of the Heavenly Evil clan when they noticed a man. The man took off his mask and said that he was a follower of Xiang Suofeng and had come to check out the situation. The cultivator began to talk amongst themselves in an attempt to remember the man, and decided that he was from the Shangcheng family. The cultivators decided that there was no problem with him, and Sha Chengji was glad that they were easily fooled by his status. But behind him, Changji appeared again and told the cultivators not to listen to the Heavenly Evil clan members' lies. Meng Changji said that he didn't expect that one of the Heavenly Evil clan would turn out to be a senior member of the Ji family. The cultivators were surprised by Changji's sudden appearance and asked what proof he had. Benda Miao wasn't happy that they weren't believed, and Changji said that it was normal to be cautious in such a situation. Kanrenji bowed and said that there was a conflict between their families on business grounds. The man turned to the guy and said that he really could have encountered a demon, but in his panic made a mistake. Benda Miao was very angry at the slander, but Changji asked her to calm down since the guy is an elder of the Ji family. But Changji had envisioned that option and was now pointing at San Bao and asking if the man had seen him die. Kanranji said that when he arrived, San Bao was already lying on the OM, and his killer was most likely the Heavenly Evil clan. After saying this, Changji suggested that they make the dead man himself tell how it was. Kanranji laughed and said that Changji likes to joke since he says such nonsense. Changji said that a dead man really wouldn't say anything, but Tang Sanbao was alive. Tang Sanbao opened his eyes. He held a jade bodhi in his hand and said that Ji Kangran was at fault. The man couldn't understand why Sanbao had survived, but there was no point in making excuses now. The system started getting a huge number of points and the notifications were rapidly changing hands. Benda Miao realized that the guy had survived because of the jade bodhi and prepared to listen to the testimony against the man. Sanbao said he had risked his life and Kanrenji had tried to kill him. Changji clapped the guy on the shoulder and was glad for the proof. The cultivators listened to Tang Sanbao and asked them to go with them and undergo a primordial soul test, which would figure out who was lying. Thus the followers carried Jikaran and Tang Sanbao away to find out the truth. The next day, Chengming was very angry and yelled at Meng Changji in a way that could be heard outside the manor. The boy complained that his brother had tricked him again, and the paper was useless. But Changji said he was the one who didn't understand anything. The Meng brothers interrupted their argument when they heard someone asking if Changji was in the manor. Li Xianyuan, Mei Yingfeng's older brother, came to them to inform them of the time of the next selection of Celestials. Meng Changji walked out to the guest and asked if, after that commotion at the ruins, they had already decided to hold the next selection. Li Xianyuan explained that since the trial of the ruins had been interrupted in such a short period of time, they could not be restored. Therefore, the elders decided that the next selection should be held in the battle arena. Benda Miao knew they could have run the other ruins, but Changji said they apparently decided it was too dangerous. Xiangwan said the tournament would start in 3 days and gave the guy an entry pass that would show him when it was his turn. Changji thanked the man and began to think about what to do with his free 2 days. In Juluzhou's temporary prison, there were 2 guards standing at the gate, watching the street. There were doors inside the prison additionally protected by chain and seals, in addition to guards. Karanji found himself in a cell and a cultivator was telling him that the inspection had found out that he was just impersonating a member of the evil clan. Karanji just wanted to increase his family's profits and influence, and now he was waiting for Zhang Feng's verdict. A vortex of purple smoke appeared in Karanji's cell, which greatly frightened the man. A silhouette appeared out of the purple thick smoke, telling the guy not to waste his energy on screaming. Karan asked who the silhouette was and what he wanted. The man was very scared, and he tried to stay away. Silhouette said that the man had pretended to be a member of the Heavenly Evil clan for so long, and was foolish in front of the real clan. Silhouette said that they wanted to team up with the demon, and Karen G should be his temporary vessel. The dark silhouette forced Karen to swallow the demon and ordered the unbridled evil to destroy the heavens. A tall wooden tower stood in the middle of the forest. The boys watched the surroundings. Suddenly, one of them ordered Biaozi to be alarmed immediately, but he was asleep and was in no hurry. The guys were screaming in panic and asking to sound the alarm and report to the man in charge as soon as possible. Meng Changji got the points and, satisfied, went up the mountain on a palanquin and said that it was a good workout. The subordinates shouted that they understood that the boss was just training them and he had no hidden agenda. Yin Rulan Changji and said that she was already starting to think as if the guy had forgotten about their meeting. The guy said he never forgets about contracts and even more so about meeting such a beautiful woman. Yin Rulan's subordinates were trembling with fear, and some believed that Changji and their mistress were connected by something. According to Yin Rulan, all of her subordinates were refugees whose village was destroyed by the monster. Changji asked why, after everything was settled, they didn't go back and rebuild the village. Yin Rulan turned to the guy and said that nobles of honorable families really couldn't understand commoners. After the destruction of the village, the land was given to powerful families, and if people want to return, they will have to live in slavery. Naturally, the guy didn't know about it before. They entered the main hall, and Yin Rulan headed towards her throne. The girl took her seat and said that not everyone was willing to grovel before cattle like them. But Changji was sure that even so, one should not harm others, and asked if Yin Rulan understood that. The girl knew it wasn't a long-term prospect, and said that was why Changji shouldn't let her down. Yin Rulan's subordinates were trying to figure out why the girl had called Changji over, and what they were now talking about. Yin Rulan stood up from her throne and ordered everyone to quickly turn their attention to her. The men were willing to listen to instructions, and asked if she was going to take Changji as her husband. Yin Rulan leaned on Meng Changji and said that he was their new Adaman from today. All the subordinates were shocked that instead of taking the guy as her husband, the girl decided to marry him herself. Ben de Miao enjoyed the sheer number of new glasses and the stupidity of these mortal men. Yin Rulan offered a few words to the guy to celebrate his new position. The men did not understand how their mistress had fallen for the love charms, and bring in an unreliable fellow. Yin Rulan said that it was important to these people that the guy showed strength and Changji trusted the girl. He turned toward the crowd of men and motioned for his brothers to listen carefully to his words. Strong currents of his chi energy appeared around Meng Changji, and he said that he would only say one word to them. Meng Changji straightened up and raised his fist upwards, his power spreading throughout the entire building with tremendous force, and her blast blew all the walls around her into little pieces, scattering rocks and boards. And Meng Changji said that the path of his followers was strewn with gold, and the boys watched the destruction in shock. The building was completely destroyed, and the men knelt in front of Meng Changji while Yin Rulan ordered to greet the new master. Meng Changji was pleased that everyone understood immediately and ordered them to prepare to descend the mountain. The men were surprised because Guanshan was in the city and the bandits did not dare to plunder the city. Meng Changji said they were not going to rob, and the men were surprised and didn't understand what else they could do in the city. Meng Changji winked at everyone present and said that they had exciting work ahead of them in the fields. Now the bandits were weeding in the midday sun and making a living from private labor. Some of the boys said they were giving the earth their sweat, and it would give them bread in return. They kept working hard to get a table of wonderful, delicious, and hearty food at the end. Changji said that despite their origins, many people don't know how to farm, and the girl reminded him that they had been with her for a long time. The people from the village that Changji had saved came, and the girl shouted that they had brought everything the boy had asked for. Changji stroked Xiaoer's head and asked if she wanted to go to town, and the girl was willing to go with Changji. The guy said he had to raise the girl well so she wouldn't become as irresponsible as Jojo. Demon got angry. Some questioned whether it was worth it to stop being bandits, but Ashan said they should go after the new king. At last it was time for lunch, and the boys could take a proper rest from their hard work. They ran to a table that had a large amount of different meats on it and were going to eat it all. But they were prevented from approaching the table by the blast wave, and the guys were forced to retreat. They were stopped by an angry Yin Rulan who asked who told them it was their food. She pointed to the buckets of soup and said they would eat it to understand the suffering of the common people. The men were not happy about such bullying, but Ashan said he had an idea. Changji heard his voice and pointed to Ashan. He said his friend had tried to attack Dr. Li, and so they went to work without rest. The boys cried out at the injustice with empty bowls in their hands. Thus the mountain bandits worked the field all day and left at sunset. Yin Rulan said that she didn't doubt Changji, but these lands still had a master. Changji said he knows well the son of the Guihai family who owned the land, so there is nothing to worry about. The guy told the girl to keep re-educating and load harder on those who are stubborn. Yin Rulan was worried that the brutal methods would cause the men to run away. Changji said that the time was almost here. Soon they heard Ashan's voice shouting for Meng Changji to come out to them. The pair headed for the exit, and Yin Rulan swung the doors open with a loud slam. She pointed a gun at the bottom and screamed that if they didn't calm down, she would behead them. The men continued to argue and said they were not causing problems, but demanding justice. Yin Rulan was trembling with anger, but the guy stepped forward and asked the men what justice was. And Shan shouted that Changji had promised them meat, and now he was forcing his followers to eat porridge. Meng Changji pondered over Ashan's words while Yin Rulan struggled to contain her anger. A group of guys watched from around the corner as Ashan managed to get himself into trouble and thought he was finished. But Changji said the man was right, and from tomorrow they would be given points for their work, which they could exchange for food. For example, 100 labor points would buy a bowl of rice and a fat chicken leg. Changji told the enthusiastic men that they should understand what they were working for. Now all of the subordinates were happy with the conditions, and Meng Changji no longer seemed cruel to them. And since a benefit came out of this conflict, Meng Changji got a lot of points again. The next day, the subordinates came in again and said they didn't want to work 4 hours a day. And at noon, all the malcontents were hung out to dry for trying to sound smart. It turned out that Ashan had made a mess on Ji's orders. but these people had started on their own and were punished. Thanks to this trickery, the guy came out in a big way and asked the demon what level he could go to. Benda Miao said that they had over 100,000 points and could advance to the 9th level. Meng Changji said that they could waste no time and begin the transition to the 9th level. Meng Changji spent the points he earned and advanced to the 7th level, the 8th level, and was finally able to advance to the 9th level. He was sorry there were no visions this time, and the demon had said the last levels were the most important. Now the concentrated ki begins to strengthen the physical body, and the hardening is complete. Even if there is no release of chi, the body will remain invulnerable as if Changji was using chi. The system showed that the current body hardening level was 99, which was level 9. Meng Changji concentrated chi on his fingertips to test his strength. He took a small flick, but it came out very strong despite the non-seriousness of the attack. A light click shattered a huge chunk of wall in just an instant. Ordinary people would have to train for a long time after level 9, but Changji could do without them. The guy looked to see that they had 50,000 points left, and asked how many nudges to build the foundation. Ben Damiao wanted to take a look, but the system said she needed to revise her path analysis for elevation. When the upgrade was complete, Changji revealed the foundation of black magic, divine magic, and supreme demonic magic. The guy noticed that you could choose between divine and demonic magic foundations, and the demon didn't understand where the higher demonic foundation came from. Everyone in this world lays a divine foundation, but lately the demons have begun to despise it. Changji wanted to see how many points it would take for each foundation, but it turned out they needed items. Benda Miao was angry that they now required rare additional items instead of points. Changji asked how many points needed to be spent in the old version, and Jojo started looking. In the old version, they would have needed to spend 1,000,000 points on a foundation, and there was only one available. And now the original version was unusable because the balance of the world was beginning to be restored. The guy started stroking the angry Jojo, and said that they would get the items they needed when they passed the tournament. Changji handed over the management of the farm to Rulan and returned to the city to prepare for the selection. On the day of the selection, the weather was good, and the birds were flying quietly over the homes of local residents. A large number of people were gathering near the right place, despite the earlier lesson. People discussed that the selection would be like the old days and wanted to see Ji and Guihai fight. Tianshu Wendao Arena was chosen as the venue for the tournament. Many people gathered around it. Changji was in the rest area and was discussing with Zhou that they should instantly get rid of opponents to save time. Meng Changji heard someone call out to him and turned around to look at his future opponent. The eldest son of the Guihai family called him over, and Changji asked if he wanted to advise him. Guihai said he had to pass and asked Changji to yield to him if anything. This was an unexpected bad reception from Guihai, and while the seating area was filling up with participants, an important conversation was taking place in a small house nearby. Ming Xiao told the elder that the family wanted to know if they would let Ji Karan go, and the elder said they could let him go. The girl covered her eyes and told her student that sometimes they had to put their common interests first. Ming Xiao bowed to the elder and said that he would follow his master's instructions. In the cell, Karan Ji was glowing with a bright red light, and there was thick black smoke around him. The demon had taken over the man's body and used it as a vessel. Now they could move on. Ming Xiao reported the disturbance to the elder. The girl said that they couldn't risk it if the Lord was doing dark deeds and ordered the followers to guard the abnormal places. Ming Xiao said that then the city's security would be weakened, and the Lord would be able to sneak into the city. The elder said that would not happen, so the others could remove themselves. Ming Xiao listened to the order, but the master was tense because of the Heavenly Lord. He had been silent for 1,000 years and began to act now. It could be due to the revival of the spirit. The competition was over, and Meng Changji was the winner. But the boy noticed that the monks had left town. Benda Miao praised how easily Changji handled his opponents and how beautiful his movements were. The girls were thrilled with Meng Changji's victory and actively supported him. Changmin told his father that his brother had won again in one attack, and his mother told him to learn from his brother. Li Dali and Erzai watched Meng Changji's victories with admiration and cheered him on. Li Erzai turned to her grandfather and said that when she grows up she will definitely marry Changji. The man tried to calm down and convinced himself that it was just baby babble while the girl wished Changji good luck. Li Feilei's assistant Li Feilei noticed that the guy was very strong and noticed that the girl wasn't surprised. Guihai number 8 and Ji Chung number 13 fought next. Guihai folded his hands in respect and asked Mr. Ji to take care of him. Mr. Ji bowed politely and prepared to fight. He looked very tired and didn't say anything. The people waited for the strong opponents to fight, and Changji noticed that the arena had grown gloomy with Ji Cheng's appearance. Ben Damiao decided to look into it, and when she focused she saw that there was an entity sitting on Mr. G's shoulder. It was the shadow of a heavenly lord, and he had been instilled into the guy's body. So there were tentacles digging into his body. Guihai threw himself into the attack, and Zhou explained to Changji that despite the lord's power, he had to inhabit people in order to function in this world. Benda Miao shouted that the Overlord had destroyed the balance of power in that kid's body when Gihai hit him. Gihai couldn't believe his eyes and was very nervous when he saw his opponent after the punch. Ji Chengwu's face changed. His eyes were red and his mouth was full of sharp teeth. The guy was turning into a demon. In the next moment, instead of Ji Chengwu, a huge black demon appeared in the arena and flung Guihai away. Changji asked if a person could turn into a demon, and Benda Miao said that it's one of 4 ways. All beings came from the revolution of the 2 Qi. Dirt gave birth to demons and purity gave birth to celestials. Therefore, not only the human race, but also the rest of the creatures can turn into a demon. The Lord collected a large amount of dirt and placed it in Ji Chengwu's body, so he became a demon, and was now calling out to Changji. The demon began thrashing its limbs into the crowd of people, killing them, and panic began to rise all around. Meng Changji jumped back, dodging the monster, and thought that it was very fast. The blow was strong, and Benda Miao said that such a demon would soon lose its mind and be unable to use spells. But his body becomes very strong. The demon's strength is comparable to the period of the Foundation. Jojo said that the demon was looking at them and asked to use the faceless skill, but the guy couldn't. Right now, there were a huge number of ordinary people near the arena who were in danger, including the Meng family. People were running in different directions. They were panicking, and among them was Li Erzai, who was trapped. She fell to the floor and cried. She knew it was wrong to do that, but there was nothing she could do. Li Failei appeared next to her, holding out her hand and telling her to get up quickly to run away. The ground around the arena shook and shattered into pieces, and Benda Miao was very worried about Changji. They were being pursued by a demon, so Meng Changji was not in the most favorable state in front of the Overlord. Benda Miao said that the demon was mastering new energies and could break the barrier. The boy wanted to stall for time until the monks arrived. Therefore, Meng Changji continued to dodge the demon while waiting for help. He was distracting it to himself. They heard the voice of the monks, and Meng Changji was glad that help had finally arrived. The cultivators created a huge sword, and one of the guys ordered to activate the seal of the exile sword. They did so. A huge number of swords were created, and they all flew quickly towards the demon. The humans saw that the adepts had finally arrived and rejoiced that the demons would soon be destroyed. Changji realized that something was wrong since there were only 7 adepts, and they were taking a very long time to come to the rescue. One of the adepts thanked the guy for stalling and said they could handle it from here on out on their own. So Changji asked him about the others. It turned out that there was a disturbance in the neighborhood, and the elders went to handle the situation. The adept told the guy not to worry and said the city was guarded by seals that would shut the demon out if anything. Changji asked if they didn't know that a demon could possess a person and break seals. Joe said that even that wouldn't work for a demon. Meanwhile, the army that was guarding the city saw something unusual, and one of the adepts pointed in the direction of the ship. This ship belonged to the Ji family, but the adepts didn't understand what it was hovering over the city for. The inside of the ship was in complete shambles, or that Ji Chengwu had distracted most of the adepts with the ship. The demon in Karanji's body laughed and wanted to unleash the potential of the body to its fullest to receive the fruits of his labors. His eyes were scattered all over his body, and he told residents he was preparing to stand trial. Meng Changji felt a strange aura, and Beng Damiao said that there was mayhem in the city. The Ji family's ship had rammed into the tower that had been the source of the seal, and now it was destroyed. The adepts who were fighting against the demon felt the seals disappear, and then you saw the destroyed building. One of the adepts asked to look up into the sky, and then everyone saw a huge red eye appearing in the ruins. The town's residents and adepts were panicked when they saw the heavenly demon above them. The elder looked at the size of the disaster in panic and didn't understand how this could have happened. A sky demon over the city and consumed it and all the people who were among the houses. The heavenly demon said that all the important processes had been successfully completed, and now they could begin to administer justice. The little demons descended to the ground and began grabbing people who were begging for help. The demons carried out the sentence passed by the heavenly demon and killed all the people who fell into their tentacles. A non-local demon said that people's energy was turning into profanity, and the way of the Demon King would soon be revealed. Jojo felt that the demon's energy was growing, and said that they needed to figure out a way to close the portal. One of the adepts shouted to Changji to run away as he would not be able to compete with the demon. Meng Changji realized that the adepts wouldn't be able to handle him either. Ben Damiao noticed that they had not recently learned to fly swords. The boys said they would close the portal and buy time to escape while they waited for the elders. Moved to the attack and began to encourage his brothers. He shouted that they would definitely win. The 7 adepts attacked the demon from different sides simultaneously using attacking techniques. They folded seals and concentrated their ki energy to resist the demon. A multitude of swords reappeared around them, watched closely from the ground by Changji. Ben Damiao said that the adepts took a big risk and they wouldn't be able to resist the demon. The adepts of the Shangqingmen Temple rushed to attack the demon, risking their lives to save the city. A A huge number of adepts were in the sky, and everyone was watching the heavenly demon. Feng Qi and Zhang Wu on their swords amongst all the other adepts and couldn't believe their eyes. Feng Qi asked if the cities were not protected from demonic foulness, and how such a demon was able to get here. Zhang Wu replied to him that the ancient scriptures said that demons use very cunning techniques. Also watched the whole situation and how the demonic energy was getting bigger and bigger. The elder used all his strength to create a huge golden blade next to the eye of the heavenly demon. She used the Shang King sword technique and hoped that it would help the heavenly demon and close the portal. Ming Xiao folded the seal and said that the energy had accumulated. He asked the other adepts to patch up the holes in the defense. The other adepts were ordered by the elder to save the population and kill the demon. I went to do her bidding. Ben Da Miao said that the other warriors came to the adepts' rescue, and Changji decided to find the family members. I give them to the rescuers. Ben Da Miao agreed to this plan and was determined to find everyone. Soon they found the Meng family, and they were just about to be attacked by low-level demons. Meng Changji realized that he had time to protect them and used one of his Ganqi blast techniques. This technique allowed him to advance with great speed, rapidly reducing the distance. Changmin blocked his family and tried to drive the demon away, while his mother ordered everyone to leave immediately. The low-level demon reported that it felt threatened but could not detect the dangerous object. So he decided to continue delivering justice, but Changji tore him apart. Meng Changji said that his brother wasn't such a coward since he was at least trying to protect his family. The Meng family need to see their eldest son and brother was able to save them from imminent doom. Changji's rescuers have arrived and are waiting for everyone at the east gate. He asked his family to head towards them. Changji noticed that Erzai was not with them. Ben Da Miao said she did not see the girl among the evacuees. A girl appeared next to Meng Changji and called out to the guy by name. Yi Changji asked who she was. When he saw the girl up close, he realized she was Dr. Li's servant. She begged him to save Mistress and the baby. The low-level demons, to continue destroying humans, reported to the heavenly demon that they had destroyed 32% of sinners. Now they were starting to use the bursting method and people were surrounded by huge tentacles. The crowd was panicking because they realized that if they weren't killed, something worse was about to happen. Among this group was Dr. Li Feilei and Li Erzai. The doctor asked if the girl was afraid, but she remained brave. They smiled at each other despite the danger of the situation they were in. The man was the first to suffer. The low-level demon destroyed him and realized that the shard could not be retrieved. He turned to the remaining people and said that the change of body was beginning and the trial was continuing. After a few seconds, the demon made the choice that Li Erzai would be next. It began to pull its tentacles toward her. But Dr. Li Feilei locked the girl with her and screamed at the demon to take her, not Erzai. Meng Changji ran as fast as he could to where the girl and the doctor were supposed to be. Ben Da Miao said that Mrs. Li and Erzai's situation is not encouraging because Mrs. is chosen as the victim. On top of that, there were a lot of demons, and to help they would have to break through them. And they didn't have that much time. But Meng Changji didn't want to listen to Jojo, and said that they had to make it in time, and would make it in time anyway. Changji asked Jojo to activate invisibility, but the demon said that demons are much more sensitive than humans. They would definitely be noticed. Other than that, they had very few points, but the guy assured that he would use the recovery skill and save Qigang's energy. They took a chance, used the skill, the incorporeal harmony as well as the recovery harmony, and Changji jumped forward. One of the demons sensed the enemy approaching and informed the rest of the demons. Li Feilei stood next to the demon tentacle and was still alive. Then the demon's aura thickened around her and began to say that the parameters of this organism are perfect and they are beginning to enter the shards. Meng Changji quickly killed all the low-level demons in his path and rushed forward. Ben Da Miao said that Qigang's qi energy makes him stronger but also cripples him. And the guy said he'd rather suffer physical pain than the loss of loved ones and ran on. He continued to run using the invisibility skill, and Ben Da Miao said that they had already spent 50,000 points. The low-level demon got a hit. It started scanning and found out that the error was unknown. The humans noticed that the demon started to take off and didn't realize what was going on around them. Ben Da Miao was glad when they got through and noticed that they even still had their glasses. They saw Mrs. Li and Ben Da Miao said that she was devouring her and it was imperative to interrupt the process. Now that they had passed through the pile of demons, Changji asked to cancel the invisibility. The humans saw him appear. Among those people was Erzai. Everyone was happy that Changji had appeared so unexpectedly to save them. This sudden appearance in front of a few people added a few points to them. Ben Da Miao was upset that she couldn't collect points from the demons, but the guy said they didn't care about that right now. Now, the demons easily detected the threat and banded together to exterminate the guy. They flew off in his direction, leaving Li Feilei unprotected to be filled with profanity. Meng Changji immediately rushed to attack and easily defeated all the low-level demons in his path. He saw that Mrs. Li was getting worse and rushed to her to interrupt the process of absorbing the profanity. Meng Changji flew through the thick black fog that was a squarish girl's hand. They were able to get Li Feilei to tear up the absorption process. Benda Miao that there wasn't much of an abomination in the body. Mrs. Lee came to her senses in Changji's arms and was very happy to see that the guy had saved her. But soon she realized she was being carried in her arms and jumped to the floor. She said she was uninjured and asked how the guy was. Changji began to move vigorously and asked if he looked like he was injured, and that calmed the girl down. One of the boys was upset that the Lord had come to save Dr. Lee, and they were just lucky, and Erzai consoled him. Li Feilei said that the guy shouldn't have come because it's very dangerous here. Plus, the events here had attracted the other demons that were in the area. Dr. Lee said Changji could run before the demons gathered, no need for rescue. Changji told the girl not to worry about him. He wouldn't barge in here without a plan. He explained that his actions had not only attracted demons to them in great numbers, but also made it clear to the adept Shen Qingmen that they were here. I was in no danger. An elder appeared next to them and shouted that demons might not even dream of destroying humans. The remaining adepts surrounded the low-level demons and shouted that they must apprehend them in order to save the others. Mei Yinfeng asked that people who could walk run and help those who were injured. And then the girl saw Changji, and the man said he believed his brothers and sisters would come to rescue him. Mei Yinfeng was very happy that the guy called her sister despite the dangerous situation, but then asked him to run and they would help clear a path for retreat. Changji turned to the doctor and said that now all the people around him would survive. Li Feilei smiled happily as she looked at the guy and told him that he was a very strange person. Benda Miao started yelling that Changji wasn't weird at all, but the guy asked her to calm down. And that's when Changji got the point, and they couldn't believe they got it from Dr. Lee. The celestial demon learned that a suitable organism had been found and the population began, despite the best efforts of the humans. The demon in Karenji's body had killed a huge number of people and was holding another one in his hands when he heard about it. The demon said yes, the Lord notified him of a suitable organism found, which was Li Feilei. The elders folded another seal in the name of the heavenly ruler, and the battle continued. The tip of a huge golden blade appeared in the sky, which was meant to destroy the heavenly demon. The girl aimed her blade directly at the center of the demon's eye, using the initial transformation technique. This time the spearhead touched the heavenly demon, but she felt the holy technique in return. The elder didn't understand what kind of weapon it was, or how the heavenly demon had learned holy techniques. The light blue lightning confronted the huge golden blade and grew larger with each passing second. Low-level demons were attacking adepts and throwing them off their swords. After a while, the adepts realized that the low-level demons had become much stronger. Mei Yinfeng why they had just barely withstood her blows and now easily countered them. Changji also noticed that the demons had gotten much stronger, and it was all the work of that huge heavenly eye. Benda Miao said that before, they were held back by the laws of their world, unable to display their full power. But now the demons had released too much of the profanity and could now use the full extent of their powers. Changji realized that this town was now very unsafe and needed to get out of here as soon as possible. Ming Xiao and the other adepts were bleeding, and their protective barrier began to shrink because the demons had become stronger. The elder asked them to hold on and not forget that they were cultivators and needed to protect people. The elder shouted that they must do so even at the cost of their own lives. As she continued to fight the heavenly demon, she destroyed its holy technique. Mei Yinfeng shouted that when the heavenly demon weakened and she was able to kill one of the low-level demons. Benda Miao explained that the elder releases chi energy that absorbs the foulness, but it won't last long. Guy realized this too, and though he would leave town as quickly as possible so her efforts wouldn't go to waste. The dark silhouette said that he didn't expect Wei Zhaohui to risk himself for people. The heavenly demon asked why he wouldn't solve this problem in one fell swoop. Salad said that they had a deal, and the most important thing for him was to get Zhou Qing's body after the demons punished the city. The demon said the girl was not punished, and he would get the body intact. Silhouette said then it was his turn to act. The statuette of a majestic dragon in his hands began to glow with a bright blue light and spread it around. The dark silhouette used the curse of silence and easily cast it on the entire city. The elder could no longer use her powers because her body had begun to turn to stone. Benda Miao didn't know who could master such powerful black magic, and Changji asked what kind of curse it was. Jojo said that this is the curse of silence, and it stops time in this world. They kept running because Benda Miao was much stronger, could resist the curse. Where the one who put the curse should be, and Benda Miao said the curse stops the whole world, so it's hard to say. Sent a notification that a shard of the system was found nearby, and Benda Miao got excited. Benda Miao backed off somewhere and asked Changji to look that way. Benda Miao said she senses that strange man has a shard of the system, and it looks like he created a curse of silence. A dark silhouette stood beside the elder, and Benda Miao saw him pull out a weapon. Approached the girl from behind and was about to kill the elder, that he would do so, consume the world,